What's up, everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing hot Deku story. What if Deku trained with All Might for 10 years? If you're new, then please like, share, and do comments. His choice of a successor was a heat-of-the-moment thing, even if he had actual arguments for it.
Do you love Lemon Deku what-if stories? Join our Patreon for exclusive 18-plus mature Lemon Deku stories you won't find on YouTube. What you'll get: daily exclusive Lemon Deku what-if stories, early access to new content, vote on upcoming story ideas, chat directly with us, and share your own ideas, request custom story concepts. We'll bring your favorite what-if scenarios to life. Become part of our community today and help shape the next big Deku story. Your ideas could become our next exclusive release.
Yagi Tashinori is conscious enough to realize that. He had been technically en route to meet Mirio Tagata, whom Nedzu suggested to be a good candidate for being his successor, only to run into this kid. This kid who asked him if he can be a hero as a quirkless boy. Frankly speaking, Yagi knew that the answer he gave him was slightly hypocritical. Yagi too was, at one point, a quirkless kid with a desire for heroics. The difference is that he was a quirkless and well-trained, if not rather buffy, even before one-for-all kid with a desire for heroics. The green-haired child in front of him was obviously timid, and obviously not trained at all in any form of quirkless combat. Yagi at least was kinda competent in boxing when he was his age, and he could easily recognize the way martial arts training made people walk, not to mention being small, and the lack of visible muscles. This changed the situation notably, at least in Yagi's opinion. This kid wasn't exactly prime hero material, especially not someone who was planning to go up a route this hard while looking to be someone like the symbol of peace. The question the kid asked was about being a hero like him, after all, and not a hero in general. Sure, there might have been a brilliant mind underneath that exterior, although it was something hard to judge after a 5-minute meeting. But there were better places to apply a brilliant mind, something that Melissa proved. So Yagi Tashinori offered the kid a reasonable alternative for the application of his wits and a desire to help, such as police. Oh, Tsukachi would like a kid this willing to help others. Or support engineering. There was also the part where he felt that an adult, and an idol to many young people, shouldn't just tell impressionable young kids that, yeah, risking their lives excessively is a completely fine idea. Not without their parents around to nod or shake their heads in order to make All Might realize what their opinion on the issue was. Especially not when he was the symbol of peace, whose ideal image as a hero was a cornerstone of the relatively peaceful era. All Might maintaining his good reputation was a public service, and he preferred to achieve that by not making major blunders, rather than having the head of Might Tower's PR department go around and metaphorically murder people. Not to mention how easy it was to go from disliking All Might to disliking the current society, and then turning into a villain. He was a pillar keeping society afloat, and he was already painfully aware that he is irreplaceable. His search for a successor was probably at least partially motivated by wanting to retire. Because let's be real, he is too irreplaceable for it to be healthy for society as a whole. Sure, the kid was dejected. Sure, he had his dream crushed by his idol. Sure, Yagi was going to one day realize how close to a lethal mistake he was that evening. But at that time, All Might was certain that his answer was correct and logical. The biggest irony of the situation is that the mistake might have been more lethal to All Might and society than to the green-haired kid left alone by their idol on a rooftop. But that's a story from a world that never came to be. Then again, he had no idea just how bad the kid was bullied for quirklessness. If he knew then, he would certainly not leave on the rooftop after crushing his lifelong dream. All Might was aware of just how much of an accidental personality cult he developed around himself, and he made not trying to alter society in any way a self-imposed goal. That way lies the slippery slope, and Yagi knows that. So he focuses on saving people and charity actions without digging deep into the social dynamics of the modern era. There are enough people dealing with that as it is. So he doesn't know just how often quirkless kids hear people telling them to kill themselves. Then he discovers that the sludge villain escaped him and rushes to the scene when he was just seen. Already well aware that his quirk is done for the day, but it's his screw-up, and he has to fix it no matter what, before someone dies. And someone almost dies, while All Might, painfully aware of his helplessness and just slightly pissed off at the heroes on the scene, has to watch. But the green-haired kid from earlier leaps to the rescue, and while he lacks power to achieve anything save for buying the victim a few startled breaths, something in Yagi Tashinori snaps, and he pushes through his limit, lowering it in the process, and saves the day. It was at this moment that Yagi understood that he just met his successor. Goddamn his small build, Yagi isn't going to retire tomorrow, and this is something that they can work on. He's going to make this kid into a hero because he just proved to have more courage when someone is in danger than several pro-heroes. End of story. All Might at least had the excuse of not knowing that he could squeeze out more from his quirk before it happened. Of course, the kid immediately vanished on him while he was distracted by the press. Not before some heroes berate him for risking his life excessively. Honestly, if not for the cameras and his quirk being super spent, All Might would probably punch some of them in the face for that alone. They should be taking notes rather than berate the kid for that. Who cares if their quirks weren't suitable? There was a kid on the verge of dying in front of them, and they didn't even try to distract their villain. Death Arms tried to punch the sludge instead of trying to yank the kid out of it, for God's sake. It took the green-haired kid like 5 seconds to figure out that the villain's weak spot is his eyes, something that Yagi figured out as well, but it's not like someone would listen to a random skeleton man. What the hell are they teaching the heroes nowadays? It took some tracking skills. All Might learned a lot of unexpected skills in the United States. You don't become a #1 hero just by punching villains in the face. But eventually he finds him. The shock on the kid's face, Izuku, Midoriya Izuku, All Might asks about that finally because he should probably know something like that before offering the kid his quirk, changes into the overflowing happiness when All Might changes his answer. Then it goes back to shock when he mentions giving the kid his quirk. Then comes the rambling, then comes more shock and tears of happiness, a lot of those. This reminds All Might of someone from his past, and he smiles just a bit more than he wanted. Well, enthusiasm is good, All Might can work with that, but he also has standards. And the kid in front of him has a lot of work ahead of him. He tells Izuku that before Yagi starts teaching him, they have to explain the whole deal to his parents. First, because Yagi refuses to be taken for some creep who is teaching their kid something weird behind their back. Let's be real, his skeleton form does make him look like that bone-manipulating villain he once fought. Second, they should probably get a heads up about their son suddenly, late blooming, a powerful quirk. Plus, there is always a risk of injuries during the training. It's best to explain the risk ahead instead of being stared down by a parent whose children was wounded during a training they didn't even know was happening. The kid promptly replies that his father died a few years ago, but his mom is there and she will certainly agree. He offers to lead his idol home with even more enthusiasm. He just looks slightly startled by the idea of Yagi seeing his room, which was brought up during an unconscious muttering. All Might thinks that he knows what caused it. He saw Sir Night Eye's office. He knows how far some people take the All Might's personality cult part. He can survive seeing a shrine to himself. He just needs to do his best to live up to the hype while simultaneously making the kid understand that no, he is still a human being. He makes mistakes. He just made amends for one particularly horrible after all. Izuku leads him to a 2-story house that looks relatively well off. That alone is good. The kid's family is neither too rich. Some of the rich people are a bit too demanding, nor too poor. He doesn't want the eventual rise to greatness of this kid to go to his head. They have enough corrupted people in the industry as it is. He also looks happy to have Yagi talk with his mother, so the family sounds supportive enough. That's a bonus point too. Having people to support you is crucial, whether they are other heroes or your family members. Izuku opens up the door and shouts that he's back home. 3 seconds later, a woman runs into the anteroom, clearly worried. She has the same, admittedly beautiful shade of green hair as Izuku, seems to be approaching her 40s, and recognition runs All Might over like a speeding train runs over a small passenger car that happened to be standing at the wrong place at the wrong time, just with less broken bones. But blood is still there since he coughs up a mouthful. He knew that the hair color and the crying was familiar. Despite so many years passing, he knew. Izuku, I was so worried with that villain attack going on near us, where have you? She notices the man behind her son, wiping the blood from his mouth while staring at her in shock. Excuse me, but who are? Misaki, All Might finally manages to speak. Even Izuku realizes that something's wrong. The woman, it's Misaki, there is no doubt. He would recognize her everywhere, even after so much time, looks at Yagi with shock on her face. How do you know that, Nam? She freezes, and there is a flash of recognition on her face as well. Wait, Yashio, what happened to you? Why do you look so thin? Yashio, Izuku decides to chirp in, taking the advantage of the fact that both his mother and All Might were thoroughly stunned. All Might's real name is Yashio. All Might, Misaki is stunned by this remark even more than she already was, her beautiful green eyes shifting towards her son. What do you mean by that, Izuku? He opens his mouth to say something, but Yagi is just slightly faster. Izuku, I'll explain everything to her. All Might says, if it's possible, could you let me talk with your mother in private? Izuku looks to his mom, who nods. He clearly wants to hear what it will be about, but he vacates the room. A few minutes later, All Might and Misaki are in the living room, sitting on the couches on the opposing sides of a coffee table. The doors are closed, and Izuku is nowhere to be seen. If All Might's understanding of him is anywhere correct, he is probably fidgeting uncontrollably, looking forward to hearing his mother's answer. All right, Misaki says. Yashio, you can start by explaining to me what the hell are you doing here and why does my son think you are All Might? She is in her confident mood, reasonably emotional. This should make the situation easy on the waterworks. Then again, she can get kinda scary when not prone to crying, and Yagi is just slightly intimidated by his memories of her. I might have not been fully honest with you back then. Yagi braces himself for the talk. Yashio isn't my real name. I had a very nasty enemy back then, and I was hiding who I really was so that he wouldn't find you. My real name is Yagi Tashinori, and while I might not look the part right now due to an injury, I am All Might. He buffs his muscles with his quirk, just enough for his own body to start resembling his heroic self. He lets it go without putting any strength into it to avoid coughing out blood again. Oh, she is shocked, probably unsurprising considering that her old lover just told her that he was the #1 hero all along. It's a somewhat different shock than he expected. That explains everything. I was trying to find you after, you know what, but I couldn't find anyone by that name who looked even remotely like you. Well, I tried to find you too. All Might replies, with similar results. Something that he regrets to this day. She is just slightly startled by it. Is she happy that he didn't just vanish on her but was actually trying to find her? That's probably because my real name isn't Misaki either. She replies, I'm Inko, Midoriya Inko. I was hiding who I was for a similar reason, really. She was certainly no hero, he was certain about that much. He would have found out about a hero with her quirk. Unless she was hiding for some completely unrelated reasons, like some abusive past acquaintance that only left one option. She had to be a villain. It was impossible. All Might knew that she could be intimidating and kinda scary at times, but she was normally such a sweet, wonderful woman and... His mind makes the connections. Oh my God. He says in English and blinks a few times. It's a miracle he didn't cough out his lungs at the realization. Your quirk isn't similar to Mischief. You are Mischief. The woman that certainly doesn't look like a famous but believed to be dead, S-rank thief nods faintly. Yaga's mind travels back to that memorable evening after his birthday party. You weren't cosplaying as Mischief back then. Her face goes as red as her hair is green. Her hands cover it quickly. Yaga's mind catches up to what he just said and what it meant and ends up coughing up a lot of blood. Nana Shimura laughs like a madwoman deep within his quirk, because this is certainly the most hilarious thing she has seen in a long time, despite Yagi being the center of many hilarious events. Yoichi Shigaraki and Daigoro Banjo, her closest friends among the past holders, quickly whip out some imaginary, but still tasty, popcorn. They all know that this is going to be a good one. Oh, if only they knew how much. It had lasted less than a year and was something like 16 years ago, but Yagi was still looking back to it as the happiest time in his life. He just barely returned to Japan from America and started fighting his war against All for One. He knew that he shouldn't get distracted by anything, but when he ran into Misaki slashing Ko and their eyes met, that was the last thing that he had on his mind. Wait, 16 years ago, just how old was Izuku? Izuku! Yaga's mind refuses to process the idea. It's impossible, right? It's just not possible, right? Is he? The words my son just refused to go through his throat, but she understood what he meant. Yes, she replies, I found out that I was pregnant soon after we got separated. She pauses for a second while Yagi is struggling to breathe. I like to think that he got my looks but your personality. He had a child. He had a son. He found the chosen successor for his quirk in the kid that inspired him with his bravery and heroic spirit, and IT was his own son. And he had him with Mischief, the supervillain that he had an idle crush on, according to Gran Torino. Yagi dared to disagree for years. It was a lot to digest. Way more than he expected to find out when he asked Izuku to let him meet his mother. He mentioned that his father died a few years ago. Yagi manages to push the words out. It's not that he doesn't believe her. Somehow, despite her just professing to be a villain, he does. He isn't sure if he can think straight now. I married someone 3 years after we'd lost contact with each other. She says, we had a disagreement a few years ago and I took the children and left him. I didn't exactly like his approach to my children and I really thought that he would straighten himself up, but he ended up dying before that happened. She adds, and Yagi notices the plural, children. There were more. He opens his mouth to ask, but she continues. You'll probably not like finding out who he was. Yagi Tashinori isn't sure if there is something that can ruin his mood right now. He got a successor, he met Misaki again, he discovered that he had a son. He all but gave up the idea of having children. He was too old for trying to have one, and frankly, all the women he met during the last 14 years had one fatal flaw. They weren't Misaki. Who was it? He says. She uses her quirk to open a drawer and then pulls something from it towards her. A picture. She hands it to him without saying the word, but there are just so many emotions on her face that he doesn't know how to interpret them. It's a picture from a Hirokin. There's a much younger Izuku in the middle, waving a prize for winning a hero trivia quiz with a proud smile on his face. To his right is Inko, smiling towards the camera while making a thumbs-up gesture. To Izuku's other side is a white-haired man in a suit, with an expression of just slight discomfort on his face, and Yagi Tashinori almost vomits his lungs out when he realizes that he is looking at All for One wearing a really atrocious fake mustache. Oh, my God, Nana says in his quirk, her words not reaching him. His old lover married All for One. This is literally the least probable thing in the entire world, maybe after All for One surviving the fight and dedicating himself fully to charity work. That could at least be explained by brain damage. Wait, she said Children, right? Yoichi, the One for All's first holder, adds from his place. Popcorn lies forgotten next to him. Does that mean I have a nephew or a niece? Lariat just groans. This is going to be a bigger mess than he thought. Why do those two blokes not realize that Yagi Tashinori just picked someone who grew up right next to All for One as his successor? You married All for One. Yagi manages to say, thankfully, or not. He was an expert in not vomiting, coughing blood at anything important, and thus the photograph was spared from recoloring. And you had a child with him. Two, actually. Inko's face is once again covered with hands. The words come out slightly mumbled. I then adopted another child and Hands are off and she inhales deeply. They are all really sweet kids. We had a rule about not bringing work home and I officially retired from villainy. The disagreement we had was mostly about him trying to have one of my children join his business. They also didn't inherit his quirk, if that's what worries you. The last words felt just slightly bitter. No, it doesn't. Yagi decides to man up a bit. Sorry, it was just a bit surprising, a lot to digest, and I don't even have a stomach at this point. She looks at him like she wasn't sure if that was supposed to be a joke or not. You don't hold it against me that I. No, Inko shakes her head. I offered him to retire with me during our argument, but he wanted to remain the emperor of the underworld. I told him that sooner or later someone would kill him, and I said that I wasn't going to hold it against whoever did that. Because All for One, because Hisashi made a decision. And while he was charming and a good husband and father, I didn't exactly like how he earned money. She probably still held it against All Might, Yagi decides. But now she knows who All Might was, and she probably figured out what was the cause of his current looks. The fathers of the majority of her children almost killed each other because they were archenemies all along. Now, unless you are going to arrest me, tell me, why are you here? Inko steels herself and asks, why were you with Izuku? I haven't seen him this happy in a long time. I saved his life from a villain. Yagi replies and her eyes widen. He ended up asking if a quirkless kid like him can become a hero like me. I said no. I know firsthand how dangerous this job is, so I suggested becoming a police officer or going for a career in support engineering. There is something complicated on her face, like she isn't sure if she agrees with him or not. But a while later I saw him trying to save another kid that was being attacked by a villain, even despite the fact that the heroes present on the scene lacked the courage to do it themselves. So I saved them both, and he inhales deeply. This is something to be said quickly and without giving anyone time to interrupt. And I changed my answer, and I offered him my quirk. She knows what One for All is. He expected it after hearing the part when she married All for One. He doesn't need to explain it to her. He can see tears welling up, the hand covering her mouth and Inko inhaling deeply. He expected a lot of things, but not this sheer gratitude and happiness on her face. Then there is a shadow on her face that he isn't sure how to interpret. You didn't change your mind? She asks, and Yagi fervently shakes his head. Yes, he learned a lot of shocking things about Izuku's family, but You were always more of a vigilante than an actual villain. He replies promptly. And all for one, well, if Izuku grew up as his son and yet is still a child with such a heroic heart, then that's just one more reason to choose him. I just need your permission. And a lot of training. Yagi will have to ask Shuzenji to tailor his old training schedule with Nana for a kid with much less strength to start with. It will be a struggle to make it in time. Oh, Izuku, she is almost crying at this point. Yagi is very close to just leaping over the coffee table to try to cheer her up. He is a quirkless kid who wants to be a hero from all his heart. Everyone always ridiculed him, and I wasn't sure how to help him. I was afraid of giving him a false hope, but I was also afraid of what would happen if his hopes died out entirely. Please help him. The waterworks start. He got to see a lot of those back in the day, most of them happy. Those tears are happy as well. This time he does leap over the coffee table. He isn't that weak and he hugs her. She hugs him back. It worked to calm her back then. It works now too, just not as fast as it used to, or perhaps these tears had more weight behind them than those in the past. He almost doesn't want to break this hug, but he has to. He doesn't return to his seat, however. This couch is big enough for the two of them. He is holding her hands like he used to do so often back then. I'll do my best, Inko, he vows. I can see a lot of work ahead of us, but he'll become a splendid hero. A hero like me. It's easier to build muscles than a moral spine. I'll help him with that, but he falters a bit. What are we going to tell him? Does he know that he had a different father? The real question is, oh my God, are we going to tell him that I'm his father? Because All Might wants it very, very much, but Inko knows Izuku better. She knows how he would react. What if it was too much for the kid? He is already worshipping All Might apparently. What if? Yes, but she takes a deep breath. I told him a different name. I suspected that you might have been a hero or a policeman, and Izuku is. Kinda scary when he really puts his back into something. He could have actually found you, and then Hisashi might have reacted badly. So All for One didn't know. He didn't know that he was a stepfather to the son of his archenemy all along. Yagi decides to ignore the scary part for now. He knows that I loved you deeply and that we lost sight of each other after that town was destroyed. He thinks that you died back then like I did for all that time. But he should know, right now, he needs a father. They all do. Money isn't a problem, and I have some friends to help me out, but dealing with 4 kids at once is straining. She breathes in and then lets out the final bomb. Especially as all of them, save for Izuku, have Class 6 quirks. They what? Yoichi is the first to speak. 3 Class 6 quirks. Quirks to violate the logic of quirks and by extension of the world. Like one for all and all for one. And her 4th kid was just offered 1 more Class 6 quirk for her to have to deal with. Poor woman. Nana announces with just a bit of a mischievous smirk. And poor All Might, because I know what he is going to do right now. Godspeed, Tashinori. Lariat and N, who just woke up and was always a major nerd, wave a banner with Catch Them All Might written on it behind her with colors suspiciously similar to pokeballs. Yagi spends like 4 seconds contemplating this before coming to a decision. I'll help however I can. I don't have much experience with being a father, but I'm going to do my best. For them all, if you let me. Her relief is palpable and her happiness warms his heart. Getting 4 children, including one that's biologically his, certainly wasn't part of his plan for today, but well, there we go. He has a faint understanding that he just agreed to something much harder than defeating villains. Maybe save for All for One. Then again, the worst supervillain in history somehow was a father, so certainly Yagi Tashinori can be as well, right? He is yet to realize who the friends helping her are, but that's a story for another day. Specifically the one when he visits Inko to see the hero killer. The man who makes the living of ending careers of unworthy heroes by beating them up and releasing the evidence for their crimes. And an S-rank villain, freeloading on her couch and watching the newest documentary about All Might's career together with Izuku. Suddenly she freezes and looks at the nearest set of doors. She puts her finger on her lips, silencing him, before using her quirk to open the door in question. The result of them suddenly opening is a small avalanche of children entering the room and collectively falling on the floor, before disentangling and trying to stand there while pretending that nothing happened. "Asa!" Inko says loudly. "What did I tell you about eavesdropping on people's conversation?" The only boy in the group looking like 10-11 years old, and clearly inheriting both All for One's white hair and red eyes, which makes him look like much younger Yoichi Shigaraki. Although this is something that only the holders are aware of, All Might has much worse comparison on his mind. Perks up, looking like a prisoner awaiting execution but wanting to die without humiliating himself. He is wearing a set of Maruko-themed pajamas. 2. Not whisper to each other while doing so because it betrays your position. Asap promptly replies. Inko chokes on air, All Might coughs out blood. He lost a lot of it this evening, and the heroes in his head are rolling on the floor with laughter. No, the other thing. Inko replies while eyeing All Might, perhaps just slightly worried about his reaction. To not do that. Asa replies before looking down. Sorry, Mom, we were just kinda curious. Izunishin was so happy but didn't tell us what it was about, said we had to wait for you two to finish, and we. A girl is partially hiding behind him, probably the adopted child since no one in the room has pale blue hair. Plus, no one else has a horn on their forehead. She is wearing All Might-themed pajamas. She appears to be 5 or 6 years old. She says nothing, she is just staring at Yagi. He has a feeling that he should feel somewhat worried by it since it's quite an intense stare, but she just doesn't feel threatening. If anything, she looks cute and friendly. How much did you hear? Inko asks. If they heard too much, if they found out about their father and that they were just looking at his, well, justified killer. From the I'll do my best, Inko. Asa replies promptly, so they didn't hear the most accusing parts, that's. You're Izunishin's father. Another little girl says, this time with a white hair, but with some strands of green among them, styled into pigtails. Her eyes are two-colored as well. Not heterochromatic, just through some unexpected quirk-related mutation, both her eyes are half red and half green. She is maybe 7 or 8 years old and looks somewhat threatening, actually. Her glare is a bit creepy. She is also the only child in the room to not wear any hero-style pajamas. Just some normal, although pitch-black ones, and a hero. Yes, All Might replies, do you like heroes? He is kinda unsure how to proceed, so he can as well try to ask something simple, right? Yes, especially Endeavor. The girl replies, he burns people to death. There is fire, bones, and blood in her stare right now. This is her father's stare, no doubt about it. It looks both extremely out of place and utterly terrifying on a young girl. Awkward silence lasts for a few seconds, both in the room and in One for All. Eiko, please. Inko sounds tired. We talked about not making that joke in front of people. It spooks them, and it's not even true. All Might is something like 50% sure that Eiko didn't mean it, but then she pulls the Gang Orca plushie that she kept behind her back and hugs it. I like Gang Orca. Eiko says All Might stops being this tense. Kyugo Sakamata is a fine hero and a good idol to have. He is from a gang, right? To the surprise of absolutely none of the heroes, in One for All that got to see their first meeting in detail. Inko Midoriya and Yagi Tashinori get married a month later. Takoba Municipal Beach Park was a name that was at best 50% correct. It was Takoba and Municipal, yes. But the beach was there only occasionally, and it was at this point anything but a park. It was, frankly speaking, an illegal dumping site. Add some waste brought by the sea, and suddenly nobody was visiting it. Unless it was done to dump some more junk at what was once a popular dating spot. Hitoshi Shinsu liked it that way. Because for as long as it was an illegal dumping site, they could live there without heroes or the police noticing them. Sure, it wasn't a good life. They were going to have to look for an alternative when it got closer to winter. But for now, they had a place to call their own. Even if it was a closed space between 2 ruined fridges with a tarpaulin for a roof. And the entrance door, even if they were slowly dying from unresolved medical needs that he really had no idea how to address. He could somewhat deal with his own by stealing from the pharmacies, but it was only delaying things. He needed particular drugs to feel better. Everything else was just him almost overdosing on sleeping pills regularly to, not die of that freaky form of insomnia he had. They were around for something like 2 months, with 3 more until it was going to get too cold to survive. Then again, they were probably not going to survive that long either way, so who cares, right? When the most impossible thing started happening. Someone started to dismantle their home, not their sleeping place itself. Thank whatever god is looking over outcasts like them. But the Takoba Municipal Beach Park began to be cleared by someone, not even by some professional group of cleaners, but by a young kid, probably their age, who was cleaning it one piece of junk at a time with a guy looking like a skeleton that the kid referred to as Dad, though the latter was mostly operating a truck, and sometimes shouting some words of encouragement and praise, and sometimes coughing out a lot of blood. It was odd. It was infuriating, really. After he returned from his bi-weekly grocery run, okay, theft, but he was on the last legs, all right. It's not like a 15-year-old runaway without documents can actually hope to earn money. He saw the duo finish with a segment of the beach. There was a fierce high-five between them, and then the parent left on a truck looking to do, well, whatever with the junk. Shinsu didn't care. The kid, oddly enough, remained and seemed to be taking a brief break. 10 minutes in, Hitoshi decided that it was less of a break and more of a low-intensity period of work, since the kid was gathering small parts of junk near the place where the truck normally parked. It was the right time to figure out what to do with the intruder. He approached him. "Who are you?" Hitoshi asked, startling the other kid. It was the simplest thing to do, provoking a reaction. He wasn't going to activate his quirk right now. The last thing he wanted is the kid connecting him to a string of thefts in the area. People finding out that they can't control their body were a common thing in Musutafu, even if most of the stolen things were food. "Oh," the kids exclaimed in surprise. He actually jumped back. That was fast, but he landed rather flexibly. Sorry, I didn't notice you. What did you say?" Someone was deep in thoughts, it seemed. "I asked, who are you?" Hitoshi said. The basic prerequisites for his quirk activation were already done. If they came to blows, he could just freeze the kid and flee. In a different direction, obviously. He wasn't going to betray where they were living. "I'm Izuku Midoriya," the kid replied with just a hint of an irritating enthusiasm. "And you?" "Ai Miyake," he replies because obviously he isn't dumb enough to tell the kid his real name. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, I'm cleaning the beach with my dad." The kid positively beams when the word dad is mentioned, and Hitoshi is just slightly more angered. "I'm training for the UA entrance exam, and we've decided that doing some community service together will be good training." "Great," Hitoshi decides. His lifelong dream of proving people claiming that he is a villain wrong by becoming a hero dies a year before he has a chance to realize it, and then he ends up living on a junkyard that's slowly cleaned by a kid with some flashy quirk that will probably get to become a hero. And it's probably just to wave some community service around on the exam for bonus points. Way to rub salt in the wounds, life. "And you?" Izuku asks back, while looking at Hitoshi curiously. No actual hostility, oddly enough, despite Hitoshi looking a bit like a tramp. His clothes had seen better times. "Nothing interesting, I live nearby." He replies and doesn't add that nearby should be taken quite more literally than Izuku thinks, or that he is, technically, a small-time villain. Not important enough to get noticed, as it will probably last until his inevitable death in a few months, which somehow is still preferable to landing back in his foster family. Please don't mention me doing this to anyone." Izuku clasps his hands and is fidgeting just a little bit. "We're trying to make it anonymously. Dad and Uncle Chisholm are very particular about heroes working to help others, not for popularity, and I don't do well with groups of people." He scratches his head a bit. "I would prefer to do that without an audience." Okay, at least he isn't evicting them and making them die on the streets for a popularity stunt. Wow, what a relief that is. "I won't." Hitoshi sniggers just a bit. "You keep doing that." He wants to say something exactly opposite to that, but it's not like he has an alternative. "All right, thank you." Izuku completely ignores the negativity in Hitoshi's voice and takes his words for true encouragement. He is way too positive in Hitoshi Shinsu's opinion. She looks not that bad when he returns to their home. But he knows that this is temporary. But he isn't leaving her like that, even if it will be the last thing that he does in his life. He wants to be a hero to someone at least once in his life. Midoriya felt like a dumb kid, but he proved that he was anything but dumb few days later. Hitoshi thought that he fooled Izuku with his "oh, I'm just a local concerned citizen" play, but no. There was more to the kid than that. He was observing him at work a few times, always afraid that Izuku was going to find their little hideout this time. But he wasn't the only one doing the observation. He realized it when at the end of the workday, Izuku suddenly turned towards Hitoshi's observation spot, waved towards him. He was like 100 meters away from him and well hidden, damn it, and pointed to something on the ground. Hitoshi waited until the truck departed to check what it was about. He found a thermos filled with food, actually warm food. Izuku knew that he was homeless. Hitoshi considered just fleeing from the beach and looking for a new place to stay, but she had one of her bad days and that made traveling impossible. They ate the food instead. It was delicious. He left the emptied and cleaned up thermos on the cleaned part of the beach soon before the kid arrived to continue his training. Neither side seemed to be willing to acknowledge the existence of the food donation bit. Izuku Midoriya was leaving the food at the end of his work, and then picked up the thermos after arriving at the beach. He wasn't doing anything else than that. Hitoshi was kinda relieved. The amount of food delivered was narrowly enough for the two of them, did Izuku know. Or was he just so generous for a single person, So while it wasn't super comfortable, Hitoshi could cut down on the grocery thefts. The weird thing is that nothing else happened. Izuku Midoriya didn't try to find them, didn't try to strike up a conversation. He was just leaving the food there, all while slowly but surely evicting them from the sad excuse of a house they had. He wasn't always arriving with his father. From time to time, he was instead with a scary-looking man without a nose, who was referred to as Chizome-san or Uncle Akiguro. A few more times, Izuku was instead accompanied by a brown-haired and slightly weird-acting man referred to as Sako-san or Uncle Atsuhiro. Izuku had a lot of uncles, evidently. Each and every one of them looked completely different. Were they from different sides of his family? Then again, Skeleton Man wasn't similar to either of them. Eventually, it was Hitoshi who decided to start the conversation, and he had once again emerged from the junkyard to confront Izuku Midoriya while his current caretaker was absent. "Thank you for the food," Hitoshi said, and Izuku once again was startled. Odd if someone were to ask him, especially for someone this observant. "Oh, no problem." Izuku replies with a kind smile. "You looked pretty hungry back then, and I saw you watching me for a few days, so I asked my mom to prepare something for you. She is already cooking for me, my 3 siblings, my dad, and whatever uncle or aunt drops by for dinner, so 1 or 2 more portions aren't that much." "That's one large family you have." Hitoshi comments and Izuku shrugs. "What do you want from me? You have an agenda and all that." Huh? This somehow startles Izuku again. He actually stares at Hitoshi while blinking rapidly. "No, I told you that heroes do good deeds wanting nothing in return. You looked hungry and I think you are homeless, so I decided to help." Is this kid really this pure? Hitoshi doubts it. The thing is, he would normally throw that option through the nearest window right at the start. But with Izuku, he only doubts it. It's still on the table. He is surprised at himself. "You should sleep more, though," Izuku adds, and Hitoshi does his best not to snarl. "The bags under your eyes are kinda large." "I know." Hitoshi deadpans. What is he supposed to say? "Well, I have that weird neurological disease that kinda makes me unable to fall asleep without using a lot of sleeping pills, and it's going to kill me sooner or later either through accidental sleeping pills overdose or through staying awake for too long. Way to bring child services on your..." And then bam, back to the foster family, probably that foster family. Hayes-Wilkes syndrome. Izuku asks and Hitoshi almost trips despite standing straight. "What?" He manages to speak. How does this kid that he is literally meeting face-to-face for the second time in his life, know what the disease that's killing him is? Isn't it rare? Extremely rare. "You clearly have no mutant quirk, and you don't seem to have any signs of mutations associated with the majority of physical transformative and emitter quirks." Izuku promptly replies, "This indicates either quirklessness, some really weak quirk, or something strong but subtle. You carry obvious signs of some really bad insomnia, and I don't think that it's because you are homeless. So my theory is, you have a mental quirk, but it grew up wrong. Your brain is constantly receiving meaningless input from your quirk, so it stays active and you can't fall asleep. So Hayes-Wilkes syndrome." He finishes his lecture and only now realizes that Hitoshi is looking at him like he just saw a ghost, or a teacher that cares. He panics. "Sorry, I didn't mean to pry," Izuku says while hiding behind his hands as if he expected Hitoshi to attack him. "I'm just really interested in quirks, and mental quirks are super awesome. Mom and Dad say that I have a knack for their analysis, but I'm not sure if they are right." He looks kinda conflicted over it. "No, you probably have a knack for it," Hitoshi decided to admit. "You are really something else. I had to visit 3 different specialists before one of them figured out what it was, and you just took one look at me and made a correct diagnosis." "Thank you, can I ask what's your quirk?" Izuku asks. There is just so much innocent curiosity in Izuku's face that somehow, just somehow, Hitoshi is compelled to answer. He knows it's borderline suicidal, considering his whole villain in hiding status, but it's called brainwashing. Hitoshi replies, "When I speak to someone and they speak back, I can issue an order to them and they will be compelled to follow it." He braces for inevitable revulsion, but instead Izuku fucking beams like someone just told him that Christmas came early. That's an awesome quirk. Hitoshi stares, feeling his jaw drop. There is not even a hint of being weirded out on his face. "Have you ever considered becoming a hero? You could de-escalate a hostage situation just by talking to the villain. You should work on the naming, though." Brainwashing sounds kinda grim. Hitoshi stares. Izuku grows increasingly uncomfortable and starts to fidget slightly. Hitoshi keeps staring for a few more seconds before his brain manages to compute what he just heard. "Where?" Hitoshi finally asks. "Where were you my whole life?" Izuku looks a bit like a rabbit caught in the headlights. He is freaked out and has no idea what it is about. Everyone kept telling me that I have a villainous quirk, for years. Now I'm homeless. I live in a junkyard, and that's where and when I meet the first person to ever say that my quirk is great. Izuku clearly doesn't know how to answer that announcement. I was probably too busy being tossed around my school for quirklessness to be able to tell you that. He tries to smile, but it falls flat in front of Hitoshi's stare. He isn't buying self-deprecation jokes, at least not from a kid who is this goddamn pure. You're quirkless and you are trying to get to the UA. Hitoshi says finally. I mean, I'm totally going to cheer for you if only for what you just told me, but it's kinda impossible. He heard of the robots. What was he going to do even if he got there? Brainwash them. UA was never an option for him. Apparently, I'm a late bloomer. Izuku replies, looking away and scratching his head nervously. Some form of strength amplification quirk, but it doesn't activate due to some built-in security measure. I'm most likely too weak to bear it, and my body keeps it offline to make me, not damage myself. I'm working to pass the threshold before the exam so that it actually works. He was still tossed around his school for quirklessness before that. Hitoshi heard of cases of supposedly quirkless people suddenly late-blooming powerful quirks, while typically wanting only to see the world burn at this point. Some of the worst villains were born that way. Considering that they were talking about a powerful strength amplification quirk on a kid that just guessed Hitoshi's quirk-related diseases and managed to narrow down his quirk to a mental one by seeing the BAGS under his eyes, like, once unless he figured it on the spot today, it was probably good that Midoriya didn't seem to hate society. Good for society, that is. Brains and brawn were a terrible combination to face. That sounds kinda cool. Hitoshi replies. What's your opinion about quirks that make you drink human blood? Hitoshi decides to ask and studies the reaction. Surely there has to be a limit to how accepting this kid is, right? Like Uncle Chizome's quirk. Izuku asks back, and Hitoshi realizes that there is probably no limit to speak off. I mean, it's just a quirk-dictated alteration to dietary needs, yes. You just have to register it officially, and then you are eligible to receive blood from the nearest blood bank. It's nothing weird. Too pure, just too pure. Hitoshi is blinded by Izuku at this point. He doesn't know how to deal with being blinded. I see. He says if his calculations are correct, one of his uncles should be here soon. He doesn't feel comfortable around adults. I'll be going. Drop by next time. Izuku waves at him and returns to cleaning the beach. The day after that, he came out to collect the usual food donation only to find a much larger thermos filled with food, a packet of Hayes-Wilczek syndrome medications, and a blood bag, all placed on the sand right before Izuku left. Hitoshi Shinsu hadn't cried in a long while, and he never in his life cried happy tears. Both things changed on that evening. He did that for a second time when he saw the colors returning to her face. Hitoshi came out to hang with Izuku a few more times, always when his uncles and dad weren't there. They never mentioned the things that Izuku was leaving on the beach. It was just random, meaningless small talk. It was after a week had passed since that day when Hitoshi began to understand what Izuku was doing. He was luring Hitoshi in, not in any malicious way. All he had to do was to just call the heroes, or villains, or whoever else he knew, and Hitoshi would be out of the picture. He was seeing Hitoshi as an abandoned kitten who clearly didn't trust people that tried to take them to a vet. So he was trying to build his trust. Trust to do what exactly? Was he waiting for Hitoshi to actually ask for help? What help could he actually offer to a small-time villain? They were going to end in juvie, and that was the best-case scenario. Returning to whatever family they had left was way worse of an option. Sure, he cut down his thefts to the minimum. Midoriya was providing him with everything that they needed to survive, at least before the winter came. But there were still things they occasionally had to get from somewhere, and it's not like he had any money to spare, right? He felt kinda guilty about it. He considered asking Midoriya to provide him with just a few more things, or perhaps actually asking him what he truly wanted from Hitoshi. In other words, what help can he offer? But then, of course, things happened. He stole himself a new pair of boots because the old ones practically broke on him, and that's when he ran into a hero, Nightshade. He heard about him from someone who had a really bad meeting with him, namely, his one and only companion, and Hitoshi knew why exactly he couldn't get caught. So he ran. He was quite fast, and Nightshade was never the fastest of heroes. Things got a bit worse when he was joined by Redwing. Hitoshi had no idea why those two heroes were in Shizuoka, much less Musutafu, but he had no time to think about it. He eventually managed to lose them before circling around back to Takoba. It's the time for Izuku to be working there, but Hitoshi ignores it. Instead, he dives straight for his little home. Himiko, he says while pretty much jumping inside. She was sleeping, curled up in the corner, but she jerked up from her sleep at his voice. We're going now. What's happening? She started to receive sensible dosages of blood recently, and she started to act more sanely, had some of her strength back but still looked pale, and her resistance to UV light was still practically zero. Nightshade is here. Her face pales even more. I lost him, but if he is in this ward, he will find us sooner or later. We need to leave now. She is weak, but not weak enough to be unable to move. She grabs her backpack. They are always, technically, ready to escape at a moment's notice. It just wasn't an option when she was so blood-starved, and he grabs his. He leaves first just to see Nightshade, Red Wing, and Thunderbolt, the fucking number 3 hero, standing in front of them. Well, your ability to run is decent enough. Nightshade says with a smile that's just a tiny bit sadistic. Hitoshi knows they are dead. Nightshade had almost beaten Himiko to death for having a villainous quirk right after she escaped from her home. If Hitoshi wasn't around to brainwash the hero, he would have just murdered her. Red Wing is apparently a friend of his and Thunderbolt, but you've run for long enough, little villains. Yeah, with Thunderbolt's speed, they can't hope to escape. Himiko clings to his back, and he would really want to save her, but this time. No, this time they are done for. To have to call me for 2 kids, HMPH. Thunderbolt shakes his head. Well, have your fun, you still owe me. A lot. Then the beating starts. What are you doing? Hitoshi hears a familiar voice saying, a familiar voice that he never heard, never even imagined to carry so much sheer fury. He can barely lift himself from the ground, and that's mostly because Nightshade stopped casually beating him around with a riot baton. It was still a better option than having him beat Himiko. Red Wing was mostly watching, and Thunderbolt was playing on his phone, and Nightshade could only beat a single person at once, all things considered. So he persevered. Most of his teeth did as well. Himiko crawled into the corner again, holding her head, the sunlight burning her, the girl left to be the dessert. Hitoshi wasn't even disappointed over her not even trying to help him, really. He remembered how long she was plagued by nightmares about Nightshade after they got away last time. She was facing her worst fear, and it was strange to expect a different reaction. She was still whimpering each time Hitoshi felt another blow on himself. But he still manages to lift his head enough to see Izuku Midoriya stand a few meters away from the scene, with his uncle Atsuhiro standing right behind him with an expression of sheer, livid fury on his face. Oh, great! Red Wing sighs. Witnesses. Well, you've done fucked up, friends. Thunderbolt announces and hides his phone. Now we'll. I asked you? Izuku stares at Nightshade. No, he doesn't stare, he glares, with so much hostility and raw anger that despite not being a target of it, Hitoshi still feels his heart stop for a second. Nightshade actually takes a step back under the glare. What are you doing? Teaching some villains a lesson before arresting them officially, of course. Thunderbolt replies calmly, we are. Are you so blind that you can't even see that I'm speaking to Nightshade? Izuku Midoriya says. Hitoshi can see Thunderbolt go slack-jawed. A 14-year-old kid just casually ignored him. More than that, it sassed him and treated him as unworthy of mention, despite him being the number 3 hero. Kid that had absolutely no signs of his standard jittering left in him, just absolute fury, with a small hint of personal hatred. Kid, I don't know who the hell are you, but... Thunderbolt makes a few steps towards the kid. It's an intimidation thing, really. His super-speed quirk allows him to cross a kilometer distance in a second or two if there are no obstructions. He's just trying to make the kid stop talking. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Izuku replies, finally facing Thunderbolt. His face is one of pure fury. Then he takes a step forward, and Thunderbolt stops his advance. Son of Yagi Tashinori, personal assistant of All Might, the number 1 hero. The child who has All Might visit his family for dinner a few times a week. The child that has just recorded you playing on your phone while another hero is beating 2 defenseless children. The child that made sure that the recording from his bodycam is being sent real-time to his father, who will no doubt send it to All Might and Principal Nedzu. The child who has just murdered your career and is looking forward to you landing in jail, you fake. The last word is practically coated in venom. Then Izuku turns his head from Thunderbolt, who somehow made a step back during the monologue, and looks back at the thoroughly frozen Nightshade. Now I'll ask again, what are you doing? You son of a... Thunderbolt clearly doesn't buy it, and is furious at being intimidated. He lunges at a kid, his hand clenched into a fist, not using his super speed quirk, but then he disappears. He just vanishes without a trace. Well, that was an enjoyable spectacle until you attacked my wonderful assistant. Atsuhiro announces, and Hitoshi realizes that despite noticing him at the beginning, he somehow failed to notice him still being there the whole time. Did Midoriya drag so much attention to himself that he somehow, now time for the encore, my dear little fake heroes. Hitoshi ends up seeing Atsuhiro ramming Red Wing's head into a broken fridge, and then the hero suddenly disappearing. Right before he deftly dodges Nightshade's baton, which seems to hit him, but no, it's just his jacket, because Atsuhiro crouched and left it hanging above him in the air somehow, and makes him vanish as well by tapping him lightly on his knee. Himiko and Hitoshi stare at the people in front of them. Hitoshi has so many questions, starting from Izuku knows All Might personally, and going all the way to, did his uncle just defeat the number 3 hero and 2 other heroes like it was no big deal? Uncle Atsuhiro. Izuku gulps nervously, and he is clearly back to his normal anxious self. When I told you to follow me, I kinda expected you to offer me vocal support on the body cam bluff, not technically kidnap the number 3 hero. Well, Atsuhiro scratches the side of his head, plus ultra. Even Hitoshi thinks that the kick to the ankle was well earned. Eraserhead is having a blast. Well, in his own terms. The best part of marrying Ms. Joke is that she knows when he is reaching the end of his patience and is ready to step in order to deflect the attention from him. So he is currently in the same room as Present Mike and Midnight. Everyone is wearing their casual clothes. This is late evening and they aren't working right now. But somehow, just somehow, Emi has taken the attention of his friends off him and he is just existing there. In the background. He filters the noise of the conversation out of his head, sets up a self-imposed mental command to wake up when he hears his name or his hero name, or if something explodes, and is doing his best to fall asleep with his eyes open. But then he gets a phone call, and he hates those. He pulls out a phone and sees that it's one of the newest contacts he has on it. All Might, the probably in a few months fellow teacher, is phoning him. He is in the area, and Nedzu gave them each other's phone numbers, plus some general introduction, in case All Might needed some investigative help or Eraserhead needed some brawn. They didn't thus far, and so All Might was happily punching out villains in the area of the UA with only some passing meetings while he was preparing to take up the job. What happened now? Who is it, Aizawa? Emi leans closer towards him, probably curious at who could be phoning such a cryptid as Eraserhead. Literally 90% of possible callers were in that very room, which happened to be the home of Eraserhead, drinking just slightly and doing whatever people were doing when they were together. Eraserhead stopped caring about that ever since he hit his daily human interaction limit. All Might is calling me. He replies, and Emi makes an OMG All Might face that makes Aizawa look just so incredibly tired. Turn on the speaker. Emi says quickly, I want to hear him. Eraserhead groans and he sees Nimuri and Hisashi going silent and eyeing him curiously as well. All right, here goes nothing. What is it, All Might? Eraserhead does his best to not sound inviting at all. It's his time off, he could be taking a nap. Then again, he could be taking a nap at any point of the day, which is why he dislikes being called by people. Aizawa, would you like to adopt a child? All Might asks, and Emi somehow does a spit take because she took just the right time to drink her beer. Eraserhead is staring at the phone like it grew horns, and said that it's a demon that wants to join Eraserhead's class to learn how to be a proper sadist. Sorry, that was a strange thing to ask. All Might corrects himself before Eraserhead says words that he would or wouldn't regret. Could you do me a favor? I need the recovery girl with everything she needs to do a field medical checkup and an abduction, 2 or 3 liters of human blood of whatever blood type, and probably some medicines for Hayes-Wilcox syndrome. In front of the UA in an hour, just without Nedzu knowing. All Yagi, Eraserhead takes a deep breath. What have you done? It's quite hard to explain. All Might replies, and he sounds almost apologetic, but it might include an accidental kidnapping of the number 3 hero. Eraserhead can feel himself going slack-jawed. Present Mike stares at him from the other side of the table. Midnight looks like she just instantly went sober and was deeply regretting it. The recovery girl was less than happy as she was about to go home. But Eraserhead managed to get to her in time. Besides, they shared the opinion on Thunderbolt, although his involvement was something that she learned only after they left the UA, since the resident rat god of evil could overhear them on it. 20 minutes later, a car arrived, driven by Detective Tsukachi. who, frankly speaking, looked like a soldier that had just emerged from the trenches after 3 years of grueling and mentally taxing total war. Do I even want to ask? Eraserhead says while he is loading into the car and taking over the front seat. No, Tsukachi replies while staring blankly into space in front of him. They both ignore the fact that the car, it's not a big one, ran out of seats, and absolutely no one wanted to be left out on whatever was happening, leading to Recovery Girl landing herself on Ms. Joke's lap. Shuzenji was the smallest of them all, after all. But you will find out soon enough. His driving is way more recklessly suicidal than Aizawa remembers. It's like he wants to die, really. They stop in front of a rather unassuming residence in an even more unassuming, if not straight boring, ward in Shizuoka. Eraserhead doesn't remember ever being near it, really, and he has no idea who might be living here. Recovery Girl picks up her tools from the trunk. Midnight is tasked with carrying the blood bags and the medicines. Present Mike is handed a stack of documents by Tsukachi, and then they are all led by the detective towards the door. The detective knocks, and after a few seconds it opens. Just enough to let them see All Might in his hero form, but civilian clothes standing behind them may be a bit too large for them, but at least not noticeable by the neighbors. You are here. He shouts, and Eraserhead can feel his ears hurt. Please come in. They do so. They find themselves in an anteroom with All Might and an unfamiliar green-haired woman approaching her 40s. I'm sorry for calling you out on such short notice. All Might thunders. His ability to keep the volume down diminishes even further in his hero form. Please, let me introduce the owner of this residence. Her name is Inko Midoriya. She does a dignified curtsy. She happens to be my wife. Wait, you have a wife? Midnight asks first. Of course, that's what piques her interest. I mean, everyone thinks that you are alone. It's almost hilarious to see how thoroughly not lewd she is off work, especially the baggy clothes makes her look weird once you actually realize who she is. We've decided to keep that part a secret. Inko replies, my husband has a lot of enemies, and besides, I don't exactly enjoy the attention of the press. Eraserhead's opinion on All Might actually rises after this. He managed to hide being married from the vultures. Despite his common, bumbling behavior, and being the most popular person in the country, hats off. Now, however, we got into a bit of a crisis that we decided that we can't deal with on our own. It includes Thunderbolt, yes. Eraserhead asks and Inko nods. What exactly happened? I think it's something to talk about in the living room. Inko replies, just before we enter, you need to know something. This is a bit more people to find out than I thought, really. All Might shrugs with an apologetic look on his face. But one of the reasons for the secrecy of our marriage is that I'm actually a retired supervillain. Eraserhead, and not only he, has a brief what moment, but she doesn't let them vocalize it. As a result, we've made a decision that neither of us do any work in our home or anywhere near it. She continues, it's a bit of a neutral zone for us and our acquaintances, and we expect you to respect that. Okay, that's just something. Eraserhead replies and groans. What sort of villains are we talking about? There is obviously someone in the house right now, even if you exclude All Might's wife. She doesn't have time to answer. Inko, my dear, those cookies you made for the guests are absolutely delightful. They all hear a voice coming from the deeper part of the house. Right before they all get to see Mr. Compress, one of the most wanted men in the country and a double S-rank villain in his signature villain outfit, enters the anteroom like it is completely normal. Oops, am I interrupting something? If you came in 30 seconds earlier before I explained the neutral zone thing, I'd interrupt your heartbeat. Inko deadpans in the resulting silence. All Might looks just slightly intimidated. Mr. Compress lets out a panicked squeal and vanishes from the room. Eraserhead looks at Detective Tsukachi, who once again looks traumatized. I was his best man, is the entire answer for the unspoken question that he gets. 3 minutes later, Eraserhead has to admit that the cookies truly are delightful. The only real negative is that he can see Mr. Compress sitting on the chair in the same room as Eraserhead without, apparently, the possibility for Aizawa to arrest him. And he isn't touching the part where he can clearly see the hero killer, the man who beat up and ruined the careers of a 2-digit number of heroes, clad in All Might's merch clothes, including a really atrocious t-shirt and even worse glasses, standing next to not just the unconscious Thunderbolt, but also 2 other heroes that he doesn't recognize, drinking what looks like a strawberry smoothie from an All Might-themed cup. He can feel his sanity slowly cracking, and he realizes that if something isn't done, he will end up looking like Tsukachi. Just how many unspeakable horrors did the poor detective see? Does Eraserhead even want to imagine the wedding? Especially after the offhanded mention that Compress organized it. So, can we please start the explanations? Eraserhead wants to go home, and he is doing his best to ignore how thoroughly entertained Emmy clearly is. Mike is mostly shocked, and Midnight is. Eraserhead has no idea what she is. Recovery Girl, in the meantime, is an enigma wrapped in secrecy and covered in a camouflage of mystery. I believe there is someone else we'll need to ask for those. Inko announces. They are all sitting around a coffee table. Izuku, please come in. Few seconds later, a kid, just slightly younger than the recruitment age for the UA, with messy green hair and freckles, runs into the room. His eyes quickly scan everyone sitting around the table and then, oh my gosh, the kid is absolutely beaming at them. Eraserhead, Present Mike, Midnight, Ms. Joke, and Recovery Girl. Eraserhead stares at him. How did he instantly recognize them all? No, All Might had to tell him who was coming, right? Kid's eyes took that moment to dart towards All Might. Dad, can I ask them for autographs? I know it's not the time, but we'll talk about it once we deal with the situation. All Might replies, but not before exchanging glances with Inko and his wife nodding slightly. Now, could you please tell our guests what exactly happened? Oh, okay. Izuku straightens up, takes 2 or 3 deep breaths, and starts talking. For a while now, I was cleaning the Takoba beach from junk as a part of the training for the UA entrance exam, with my dad and sometimes my uncles. Does Eraserhead want to ask who those uncles are? Probably not. It's bad enough that he just learned who is going to be his next problem child. I at some point noticed that there was a child my age living in the junkyard. He was obviously a runaway and a small-time villain, but it really wasn't their fault, so I decided to try to help them and... Eraserhead raises his hand to interrupt the stream of words. They were a villain, he asks, and the kid loses maybe half a second to start answering that. Yes, he replies. I suspected it, so I browsed the Hero Network data under my dad's supervision, and I found a string of small robberies in the area done by someone similar looking with some form of mind control quirk. But it was never money, just stuff like food or medicines. I wanted to see if this is more of a necessity than anything to them. And the food thefts clearly ended after I began to leave food on the beach after training. I see, please continue. Eraserhead replies, hiding the fact that he was just kind of impressed. A 14-year-old kid identifying a villain, even if small-time like that. Not bad at all. I decided to get to know him better without calling the heroes or child services to figure out what or who he is hiding from. Izuku continues. I kind of figured out that it would be best if he actually asked to get helped. I think that it was going quite well, and I learned a lot of things, and I think that he started to trust me. But then today happened. I was cleaning the beach with my uncle Compress acting as a truck driver. Eraserhead is really not digging into the part where the son of the symbol of peace has one of the top supervillains act as their nanny. Who the hell is Midoriya Inko? Judging from the occasional glances that Midnight is giving her, Eraserhead isn't the only one who wonders. That's when I saw the kid running back into the junkyard. Izuku continues. Right after that, I saw Nightshade, Red Wing, and Thunderbolt enter it after them. The number 3 hero and 2 other heroes following a small-time thief. That's going to be pretty bad, isn't it? I got worried, so I asked Mr. Compress to follow me and we went after them. Eraserhead can only hope that Mr. Compress wasn't in his villain outfit because his assessment of Izuku, Midoriya, Yagi's intelligence would drop significantly. When I arrived, I saw Nightshade trying to beat that child and another one his age to death with a riot baton, while Red Wing was watching and Thunderbolt was playing on his phone. Izuku says, and Eraserhead would have choked on air, but years of being an underground hero taught him how to deal with things both messed up and unexpected. Thunderbolt, the number 3 hero, was doing what? While someone was beating a kid to death over some small-time theft. I tried to make them stop doing that by bluffing that I was recording the whole thing and it was streaming to my dad, who is All Might's personal assistant, and I think it was going quite all right, but Thunderbolt tried to attack me, and my uncle technically ended up kidnapping him and the other 2 heroes. Izuku concludes his tale. There are a few long seconds of silence that clearly makes him uncomfortable, and he decides to stop it by adding something. We've also brought those children here and patched their wounds, but they are not in good shape. So Dad decided to involve the Recovery Girl. I'll leave you to deal with Thunderbolt. Recovery Girl announces. Despite 3 heroes lying unconscious on the floor, she has other things to do. I'm going to take a look at those children. Where can I find them? Soon she and Co. and a lot of blood bags disappear from the room. All right, so let me get this straight. Eraserhead decides to take one for the team since Mike, Emmy, and Midnight were just so unbelievably useless. You, the son of the #1 hero, were training on the beach with one of the most prolific supervillains in the country acting as your nanny. You decided to save some runaway kid living on said beach, which led to you seeing 3 heroes, including the #3 hero, commit a blatant case of heroic brutality if not a downright murder attempt on 2 children. So you proceeded to intimidate them, and when it didn't work, you kidnapped them. Izuku looks down, but he honestly feels more shy due to standing in front of the people than in remorse for what he did. Then he nods, definitely a problem child. And why didn't you tell anyone about the fact that you identified a villain responsible for a string of thefts? Eraserhead asks, and he can see Tsukachi nod a bit. Well, I did. Izuku replies, scratching his head a bit. Is it some sort of a nervous tic? The movements are a bit odd. I told my parents. Dad wanted to call child services, but after I pointed out what I learned, he decided to let me try to help. The heroes in the room stare at All Might, who is just a bit startled by it. El let him talk before accusing me. He promptly shouts and Izuku jumps up a bit. He feels rather jumpy in general. I found out that the kid I was seeing on the junkyard had a mental quirk from the police records. Izuku says quickly, I knew that he looked like he hadn't slept in a few days, so I figured out that he has Hayes-Wilczak syndrome and Eraserhead once again raises his hand. Quick explanation for those who don't know. Aizawa says, so most of us, what is that syndrome? The recovery girl looked at him really strangely when he told her to bring the medicine for it. And he had never heard about it. It's a rare quirk disorder when one's mental quirk refuses to fully shut down and keeps the brain's activity up at all times. Izuku promptly stammers. It makes you unable to sleep unless you eat up a lot of sleeping pills. There are dedicated medicines, but the disease is rare, so they are hard to get. Not something you can steal from a pharmacy. So I decided that if the kid from the junkyard was living there despite knowing he has the syndrome, there was a high chance that he was hiding from someone, most likely his own family, and considered it important enough to, risk his own life. I wanted to find out before making Dad phone the child services. If his family was abusive to him, I didn't want to be the one to make him return to it. That was a rather thoughtful approach, kinda unlike All Might, really. Izuku Midoriya spent weeks, if not months, trying to figure out how to help a kid that he met on the street, despite knowing that he was a villain. And then jumped in front of the #3 hero to save said villain, who clearly didn't deserve to be beaten up for what he did. Eraserhead nods with approval, just a bit, not strongly enough for anyone to notice. He isn't going to play favorites, even if there is a chance that the child in front of him wouldn't pass the entrance exam and thus wouldn't be a problem to him. He does glance towards Tsukachi, though. I can confirm that everything he said was true. Tsukachi promptly replies. Which means that we are now going to have to deal with the fallout. He sighs. We can't exactly make it public that Izuku is All Might's son, nor the fact that Thunderbolt was done in by Mr. Compress accompanying Izuku, and I'm 99% sure that he recognized the quirk or will at least be suspicious of it. So what do you propose? All Might asks promptly. I can find a way to jail Nightshade and Red Wing. The detective replies, they have no substantial backing, but unless we have an actual, honest-to-God recording of Thunderbolt standing there while a kid is beaten to death, the Hero Public Safety Commission will rescue him. Worst of all, if I try to involve all 3 at once, Nightshade and Red Wing might get rescued by association. He takes a few sips of the coffee and continues. My suggestion is to have those 2 jailed, and let Thunderbolt go after some proper corrective talk from All Might. Probably some, you will retire or I will find you and teach you what the word pain means thing. Oh, I think I can work something out. All Might smiles in a way that Eraserhead had never seen. It's intimidating, really, and slightly scary. But we still need to figure out what to do with the children. We brought you here mostly for that. You, as in Eraserhead and the other heroes, obviously. Tsukachi's usefulness clearly ended, and Recovery Girl was doing something else. Izuku might have an idea to present to you. He motions his son to start with a beaming look of paternal pride on his face. Yes, Izuku straightens up a bit. Basically, I knew his quirk for a while, and I learned what hers is like today, and they are really, really cool, and I think that they would make for awesome underground heroes. And they are young enough to try to apply to a hero school. He even mentioned that he wanted to do that before, bad things happened to him. They just need someone to give them a chance and address their medical issues, and He looks at All Might for help, since he is clearly not seeing what he hoped to see on their faces. I agreed to involve Present Mike and Midnight because, frankly speaking, we might need some more teachers in that. All Might finally says, Izuku has an interesting idea on how to deal with it, and I think that I'm on board with it, but realizing it might require some additional leverage in front of Nedzu. They are still debating the proposal, mostly working out the details because everyone in the room is on board, just with varying degrees of doubt, when Shuzenji returns to the room with Inko Midoriya tailing her. Shuzenji shows not a trace of it on her face, but Eraserhead had known her for years. Recovery Girl is out for blood, and it's not for the transfusion. Midoriya Inko looks calmer, but something in her green eyes make Eraserhead's blood go cold. Aizawa, Tsukachi, she announces. I want you to do your absolute utmost to send Nightshade to jail for as long as possible. And then do the same with every member of those kids' families that you can find. She lands herself on the armchair. That bad? Tsukachi replies with a question. Worse. Recovery Girl replies promptly. He has 3 broken fingers, 2 broken ribs, and a concussion. She has second-degree burns on a lot of skin, and that's just the most recent damage. I'll need to break and set her bones again properly, because she had her arms broken by someone, apparently Nightshade, during an earlier meeting, and she clearly received no medical attention after that, so they healed wrongly. Eraserhead can hear her fingers tapping on the table. They are both malnourished, and that's not recent. They didn't eat even nearly enough for years. There are also the medical issues to consider. If Izuku Midoriya didn't decide to try to help them, neither of them would have survived the winter. There is a faint sound of her tongue clicking. And considering what I managed to get out of them, they both knew about that, but considered it a better option than returning to wherever they escaped from. Well, shit, Eraserhead says. Looks like it's time to ruin someone's life. Emmy nods furiously. Mike adds a way too loud YEH that Midnight promptly joins. I think we're also in agreement about what we do about those kids, yes. Emmy elbows him discreetly. It still hurts. Let's adopt them, Shu, she says, and he stares at her like he just met her. We haven't even seen them yet, Emmy. Eraserhead manages to reply while Inko, Izuku, All Might, Detective Tsukachi, and Recovery Girl are staring at them weirdly. That's great. Think about it, no bias concerning their looks or quirks. She replies with a bright smile, way too bright. All Might clears his throat. Eraserhead decides to once again take one for the team. He's used to how useless Mike and Midnight are in moments like these. Honesty for honesty, he tells All Might with a blank face. We got married a few months ago. Tsukachi's look of pity is just sad. Aizawa turns to face Emmy. My answer is no, we aren't adopting them. I'm not budging on that. He unconditionally surrenders to her 20 minutes later. They are about to leave the building, with those kids clearly shocked by the gentle treatment and a promise that they will not be returned to whoever they escaped from when they see someone else. Or to be exact, Emmy does. There is a 6 or 7-year-old girl with white-green hair wearing a set of black pajamas staring at the guests from the doorframe, with a gang orca plushie in her hands. It's almost after midnight, so it's a bit late for her to not be in bed. Oh, hello there. Emmy coos just a bit because that girl, despite her slightly intimidating glare, is just super cute. My name is Emmy, what's yours? The attention in the room shifts to them. Eiko, she replies promptly. Emmy decides that it's a cute name. It means love child after all. Then the girl puts her hands up and shows her 6 fingers while almost letting her plushie fall to the floor. Oh, so you are 6 years old? Emmy replies with her brightest smile. No, Eiko shakes her head. I committed 6 murders. The silence in the room is total, save for the sound of All Might coughing out a lot of blood. Inko goes pale in horror. Your birthday ends your previous year of life. Eiko announces, completely unshaken by the silence. When my 7-year-old self was born, my 6-year-old self died. I killed it to grow stronger and take its belongings for myself. That's murder and robbery and probably identity theft. Then she yawns. I'm sleepy, good night. And she walks out of the room. What the hell? They all hear Present Mike's terrified whisper. 3 days after the event, Thunderbolt suddenly announces his retirement in the media. He cites undefined medical problems and says that he needs to focus on his civilian life. He uses his money to buy a small and generally unassuming countryside cottage, where he promptly retires after selling all of his belongings that didn't fit inside, and donating most of the money to the charity groups focusing on helping victims of quirkism. Eraserhead didn't get to see whatever corrective talk All Might gave him, so he grew curious. What had that much effect on the corrupt hero? What broke him so utterly that, despite being a glory hound with a nice backing in the hero commission, he just retired. Completely, thoroughly, and irreversibly. So, against himself, he phones All Might. He picks it up after a few signals. Aizawa, All Might sounds almost cheerful. What do you want? I just wanted to ask what you told Thunderbolt. Eraserhead replies, you clearly terrified him and I want to know how, for reference, let's say. Oh, you know, All Might replies, sounding a bit surprised by the question. I learned a lot of things in the United States. A hero needs to learn many skills, not just stick to one skill set, right? Oh, Eraserhead knows that very well. I'm skilled in tracking, trapping, survival, sewing, fishing, CIA-enhanced interrogation techniques, cooking. CIA what? I might have mentioned to Thunderbolt one of the things from the list. All Might adds, I might have also mentioned how furious I am at him attacking my de facto nephew. And that Star and Stripe, the United States #1 hero, owes me a favor. Oh, and also the part where it's really easy to just vanish mysteriously when you manage to irritate the #1 hero and the CIA. And that Star and Stripe is a drinking buddy of its current director. All Might chuckles into the phone. Well, is there anything else you want to know, Aizawa? 20 years earlier in America. So, a trainee asks, can I give that training mannequin a white wig and paint his eyes red, for reasons? 7 hours later. Do I want to know? The higher-up visiting the training center asks. Why is that trainee accusing the mannequin of killing someone named Nana while waterboarding and beating him up? Probably not, the instructor replies. But I like his enthusiasm and creativity. 2 months after the Thunderbolt's retirement, All Might found himself entering Nedzu's office, with, as always, the feeling of being deeply unsettled, probably in danger, and most certainly not wanting to be there. Nedzu was tolerable for as long as he kept to less than 2 Ts per hour. He was dangerous between that and 4 Ts. Anything above that, and well, if he was angry at you at this point, it was wise to consider suicide and spare yourself the pain. Principal Nedzu was legendarily vindictive, sadistic, and cruel. How exactly he managed to remain a principal of the most reputable hero school was anyone's guess. The rat was either too smart to be caught on anything, or he already managed to terrify everyone notable in the country beyond the point where they were willing to risk his wrath. All hail our secret rodent overlords, to quote what Tsukachi once said after he got a bit too drunk. Okay, not said, chanted, on the street. Somehow, just somehow, Nedzu knew and sent him a thank you for your support message to the detective's private number. All Might. Rodent was sitting there in his signature sneakers, were he and Izuku buying their shoes in the same shop, and with a chamomile tea in front of him. What a pleasure to see you today. What brings you to my office? Calm down, All Might tells himself. Inko is way scarier. He remembers her reaction when she finally discovered that her husband left her son on a rooftop after crushing his dreams. Frankly speaking, fighting all for one again didn't feel as scary after that scolding. I was chosen as a representative of the school faculty. All Might replies and puts some papers on the desk in front of Nedzu. Despite not technically being a part of it yet, I was told to bring you these proposals in their stead. There are 2 of them now, only because Eraserhead decided to jump on the bandwagon and announced that he will give his support if he gets to put forward a proposal of his own. Aizawa was just kinda like that. Nedzu quickly skims through the first file. Ah, changes to the entrance exam. Nedzu nods. Can see Eraserhead's hand in it, though the reference links, bibliography, etc. are certainly not his. However, I have my own reasons for using the robots. The sad part of mankind is its over-reliance on image, and the image of heroism is, more or less fortunately, based on you. At least in Japan. So direct firepower. With how the HPSC tailors the public opinion, I need to tailor the graduates of the UA properly in order to not be outdone in terms of public image. As otherwise will no longer be a #1 hero school. This is why there is a backdoor in the form of the school festival. It allows people with less flashy quirks to show their skills to the world and prove that they are the equals of the hero course students. Please do not tell me straight to my face that my position as the symbol of peace is why many non-flashy yet still useful quirk bearers are denied their chance to realize their dreams. All Might sighs painfully. What about the argumentation for the changes in that proposal? He is quite curious about it. After all, Izuku wrote it. Okay, Asa helped. Inko helped. All Might helped. Even Mr. Compress and Stain, who had some serious beef with hero schools that All Might decided to not dig into, helped. Eraserhead helped as well, of course, but most of it was still Izuku's work. Well, I admit that it does raise some valid concerns that weren't brought up before. Nedzu nods again and caresses his fur for a bit, his equivalent of making a thoughtful face. It is true that the option to switch courses isn't advertised enough, resulting in many prospective kids not applying to general course after failing the hero course exam. It is also true that in order to make things more honest and give the general course kids a chance, they should be offered at least a possibility of attending self-defense, quirk training, and additional physical training classes. Since without that, even the relatively brief time between the start of the year and the first school festival is enough to widen the gap between hero course and general course. The idea of organizing a special exam for the potential transfer students is also interesting. All Might didn't expect that. Really? He asks. He is still in his skeleton form, so his brow lifting is rather noticeable. He always talks louder when in hero form, and from his experience, that doesn't sit well with Nedzu. I expected you to disagree with it. The idea is interesting. Nedzu says again, it is true that some students might simply have bad luck during their first school festival, and that such a failure can easily breed malice. The idea of allowing the homeroom teachers of Gen Ed courses to pick particularly prospective students, and for the school to organize them a closed exam a few months after the school festival is interesting. Whoever wrote this paper certainly took notice of my reasons for the robots on the entrance exam, as he even states that passing the exam doesn't have to mean transferring courses, but it should mean being cleared to attend at least the foundational heroics lessons alongside the hero courses, in order to not widen the gap and prepare for another attempt at course transfer. I believe Eraserhead struggled a lot with making up for the lost year of heroics, since he managed to earn the transfer during his second school festival. Nedzu goes silent and continues stroking his fur while lightly kicking his short legs in the air. Deep thinking this time, really deep. Robots will stay during the entrance exam. Nedzu finally comes to a decision. I agree that their regular presence during the school festival is an overkill, especially the 0-pointers, however neutered is their programming. I also believe that the rest of the proposal does raise some valid points. Points valid enough to justify testing the offered solutions in real life. I'll advocate for that during the school board meeting. Considering the fact that when Nedzu said jump, the school board didn't even ask how high, instead it jumped as high as possible while wiggling their metaphorical tails in happiness caused by being able to please their rodent overlord. This meant that the proposal was accepted. The appetizer is behind us, now time for the main dish, Nedzu says, while putting the first file away. The second one is clearly a thicker stack of papers. It was Izuku's magnum opus that he spent every remaining free minute during the last 2 months on, while getting any help he could, including many, many hours of technically illegal access to the Hero Network under his father's supervision, but still. Oh dear, Nedzu says quietly midway through the file. Oh dear. He adds a few more pages in. His speed of reading is inhuman. He is just taking a brief look at the page and continues on, second per page. But unlike normal human speed readers, he has enough brain power to read and understand every single sentence, correct all typos, and cross-reference with previously possessed knowledge, while simultaneously plotting the downfall of mankind or something. All during that single second. That's an extremely interesting and bold proposal, Nedzu says after putting the file away. His whiskers are trembling slightly. Is it excitement? I also enjoy the personal touch, especially the point in the list of arguments that only states that, and I quote, the Hero Commission president will be royally pissed off, and that's frankly a reason to do it on its own. The feud between Nedzu and the president was probably the second most intense feud in the history of Japan after the one between All Might and All for One, really. And Yagi Tashinori isn't sure if it wouldn't get just as intense if the two were allowed to publicly murder each other without losing their hard-earned positions. All Might is still going to have a serious talk with Izuku about sneaking swear words in official papers past his parental proofreading brigade. Frankly, it's a high-risk, high-reward proposal, especially in light of the presented list of candidates. Nedzu adds, we'll need to ramp up security, notify the PR department in advance, and probably expand the campus with 1 or 2 additional buildings, not to mention fact-checking the data, screening the candidates on our own. Hound Dog is going to go bald from overwork. Then again, he clearly signed the proposal, so he is ready for it, or expects to get some helpers. He goes silent for a few long seconds. Even the whisker shivers calm down. All Might isn't going to interrupt him right now. It wouldn't be safe. Time to spill the beans, All Might. Nedzu finally speaks. Who put this forward? I can see the signatures of Eraserhead, Present Mike, Midnight, Cementos, Power Loader, Hound Dog, and pretty much the entire faculty save for Lunch Rush and 13, which is reasonable enough due to their minimal involvement in the execution of this proposal. Even Vlad King is on board. But the idea certainly came from none of them. So who was it? My successor. All Might replies promptly. Nedzu is taken aback for maybe 2 or 3 seconds. All Might forgot to mention earlier that he has chosen someone. Certainly not Mirio Tagata. Nedzu replies it's probably just him thinking aloud. He is smart and driven enough to put up such a paper, but this sort of an idea just isn't his style. You picked someone else, but who could it be? He is staring at All Might for a few more seconds. Certainly none of the UA students, some recent graduate, an older hero. You'll meet him in a few months, All Might replies, when he will attend the UA entrance exam. All Might isn't sadistic enough to time that revelation with Nedzu's regular tea sips. It's probably an expensive tea, and he doesn't want to get hunted by the members of Inko's tea parties. He can probably survive Mr. Compress's rage, but Gentle Criminal and La Brava would hunt him to the ends of the world. Nedzu still sounds for a second like he choked on air. All Might expects him to spit out a fur ball for a second, but no. The chimera isn't feline enough. A 14-year-old child wrote this. Nedzu raises the file with his hand, while staring at All Might like he just met him and wasn't sure what to feel about the symbol of peace sitting in his office like it was no big deal. Well, he had help. All Might shrugs. He is working real hard to prepare himself for the entrance exams, so he had maybe an hour or 2 per day to work on it. Took him almost 2 months to get it done. Then again, knowing where to find competent help is a useful skill on its own, isn't it? And I assure you that the others merely offered their input. He wrote, fact-checked, and prepared the bibliography and the footnotes on his own. That's true, yes, indeed. Nedzu is lost somewhere in his own world, that All Might feels comfortable not visiting. What did he do to make you notice him, and decide on making him your successor? Despite being quirkless, he managed to properly analyze the villain's weakness in a heartbeat, and did more damage to him by throwing his backpack than several pro-heroes on the scene managed to do with their quirks. All Might replies promptly, and with paternal pride that it's only slightly tainted by guilt of knowing what sort of absolutely stupid thing he told the kid earlier. All because the villain was about to strangle his school bully, of all people, to death. Meeting his mother, and discovering that not only is she my old acquaintance, but also that I just offered my quirk to my own son, was a cherry on top. Your S, Nedzu blinks a few times. Oh, that certainly had to be shocking. Discovering that he was your son after making the proposal certainly clears the suspicion of nepotism. He thinks for 2 more seconds. We'll have to make some adaptations to not make you his teacher, provided that he passes the exam. Then again, if we follow those proposals, expanding the Foundation Heroics classes with another teacher would have. Nedzu's eyes trail off for a while. You know, I might be willing to agree to the second proposal as well if... The answer is yes. All Might interrupts Nedzu. Excuse me. Nedzu blinks a few times, but you don't even know what I wanted to say. And All Might knows agreeing before Nedzu says what you are agreeing to is generally considered to be suicidal, but this time he knows what it is about. I don't. All Might replies. But my son, after listening to some inside stories about you from Eraserhead, decided that there is a high chance that you will be interested in giving him some personal lessons if he passes the entrance exam. So he prepared accordingly. All Might pulled a scrap of paper out of his pocket. On it was one more benefit of the second proposal acceptance, written with the same formatting and probably explaining the oddly large open space at the end of that page in the proposal. Here. Terms and conditions of those lessons, written by my son, proofread and accepted by his mother and me. Nedzu only glances at the paper before laughing in his most maniacal, disturbing way. The tea gets spilled en masse, and All Might immediately realizes that somewhere out there, Gentle Criminal is probably crying. Oh, I love your son already. Nedzu finally says. All Might sees way too many teeth in front of him. I'm agreeing to the terms and conditions wholeheartedly, and the second proposal will also be accepted. It will require some changes, since I do happen to have access to some information sources that your son clearly doesn't, but the general idea is solid and sound. I can see the benefits if we manage to pull it off. At least make him overthrow a foreign government as a graduation exam, all right. All Might clicks his tongue in his irritation. Then he remembers about the bullying thing he mentioned earlier, and he decided that now is a good time. Nedzu is clearly happy, and he agreed to the deal, so he won't try to twist around it by making this a part of it. By the way, I have a question about your secretive covert wars of organizational destruction. Yes, Nedzu, the rat bear that once dismantled a criminal syndicate in 23 minutes without leaving the teacher's lounge because he felt bored during a faculty meeting, asks back, obviously curious. Do you take requests? All Might deadpans. There is a sadistic grin on the rat's face, almost matched by the one that breaks out on the face of the #1 hero. Teachers from the Aldera High School are woken by nightmares that night. Oh, if only they knew. The true hero has convictions. Stain, the hero killer, announces in the dead silence of the room. They know when they have to risk their lives for the greater good, for others. They have convictions and they are ready to stand by them even if it costs them their lives. Death, after all. Stain, I'm begging you. Mr. Compress interrupts the hero killer. Stop being a drama queen, we're just playing Uno and you are supposed to pick the card. Don't blow this out of proportion every damn time. He sounds relatable to Eraserhead, because he sounds like he is having a migraine. Stain, the man who has destroyed the careers of 47 corrupt heroes by unleashing the evidence of their corruption, La Brava and Gentle Criminal were extremely useful in obtaining that, right after beating them up in the alleyways, thus proving both their physical and moral weakness, snarls and picks the card. Can I borrow a knife? Eiko Midoriya asks. Eraserhead honestly almost falls off his chair because he didn't notice her being there. She just somehow popped up right next to the table taken by 2 supervillains and a hero that was chosen by All Might to look over the kids that evening. Because he and Inko are apparently out on a date. Eraserhead calls bullshit, but at least it's a calm evening. Asae is napping on the couch. He even gave Eraserhead his wallet back, and Izuku is typing something on a laptop in the corner. All while Present Mike is with Eiko and Eri in another room. He wanted to fight through the trauma or something. Interrogation, combat, or problem-solving? Stain asks back without even looking at her. Problem-solving. Eiko replies, Present Mike is too loud. Eraserhead can relate, just not to needing a knife to solve that problem. Especially not when it's the kid that wants to do it, and especially ×2 when it's that kid. Eiko Midoriya is giving him the creeps. Worst of all, she stated that she wants to become a hero, like her beloved Oniichan. Eraserhead is going to retire right before she becomes old enough to apply to UA. There literally isn't enough coffee in the world to make him consider being Eiko Midoriya's homeroom teacher. He can deal with problem children, yes, but demon children are outside of his area of expertise. Worst of all Might is absolutely enamored with her, almost as much as he is with Eri. Does he even have working eyes? Sure. Stain pulls a small but surprisingly nasty-looking knife from a pocket and tries to give it to a 7-year-old girl, but Eraserhead grabs his hand with his capture scarf. Are you insane? Aizawa says while glaring at the hero killer from across the table. You do not give knives to children, especially when they ask. Well, you heard the man, Stain says with a shrug and pulls his hand back. This time he looks at Ake. You need to do it the old way, girl. Psychological violence, then. Eiko nods, her face filled with an expression indicating that she just came to a decision about something. Then she lunges under the table. Eraserhead bends himself to look under it as well, but all he is seeing is 3 pairs of legs belonging to the 2 villains and a hero. What the hell? He asks, his head returning to the surface of the table. A warp quirk. I have absolutely no clue, Mr. Compress replies. And frankly, I don't want to know. Her parents and siblings know what her quirk is. Let's trust them that it's nothing dangerous and keep living in peace. The less you know, the shorter the interrogation. Stain adds absent-mindedly while staring at his cards. The game isn't progressing in his favor. 5 minutes later, a thoroughly terrified Hisashi comes running through the living room, screaming something akin to, I can't, repeated continuously like a madness mantra. He flees through the front door without even taking his leather jacket. Eiko and Eri step from the room he just fled. Eri looks saddened and goes after Present Mike, who is most likely right outside of home, panting heavily and trying to man up, but Mr. Compress still darts off after Eri just in case, probably to hug him and tell him that everything will be all right. What happened? Stain asks Eiko. I drew him. The girl replies promptly, then she shows them the drawing. It's just a tombstone with a past Mike written on it. He didn't like it. Eiko somehow sounds genuinely surprised by it. Oh my goodness, All Might positively beams. I thought that it was going to take you 10 months, but you've done it in 7. The beach is clear. 7 months of hard work paid off. Takoba Municipal Beach Park is once again a park, and there is a beach.
Do you love Lemon Deku What If stories? Join our Patreon for exclusive 18+ mature Lemon Deku stories you won't find on YouTube. What you'll get: daily exclusive Lemon Deku What If stories, early access to new content, vote on upcoming story ideas, chat directly with us, and share your own ideas, request custom story concepts. We'll bring your favorite what if scenarios to life. Become part of our community today and help shape the next big Deku story. Your ideas could become our next exclusive release.
Izuku is tired but happy. He is also way stronger than he was at the beginning. I'd have shown you the photo of yourself that we did at the beginning, All Might says, eyeing Izuku curiously. But you actually changed less than I thought you would. I mean, you are clearly stronger, we tested that, but you are still kinda small. Oh, that's normal on Mom's side, I think. Izuku replies, he did get some muscles, yeah, just less than he thought. He kinda hoped to get bigger, too. Was there still a chance of some last, final growth spurt? They are all stronger than they look. She mentioned that a few times. Well, I can certainly attest that she is surprisingly strong. All Might replies. She was always more flexible and agile than strong, but he still remembers that bar brawl. Misaki, okay, Inko, anesthetizing 7 bar brawlers with a creative use of a coffee table that she swung around like a weapon was truly an inspiring moment to watch. The point is, I believe that we've come past the minimal physical requirements for one-for-all inheritance. So we're going to do it. Izuku asks. He is clearly excited because of course he is clearly excited. All Might calculates things. No, let's not be that risky. He isn't 100% sure if the one-for-all is based on natural strength or on the size of the muscles. He isn't having his son explode on him, right? He only just barely met him. Let's not be too hasty. He can see his mood drop a bit and he curses himself a bit. Izuku, this is a dangerous thing. We still have 3 months until the entrance exam. I'll figure out some additional training for the next 2 months and then you'll get the quirk. He should also invite Gran Torino to try to teach his child the basics. He learned a lot of things in the United States, but dealing with intricate details of a quirk is unique, as his own wasn't among them. They don't exactly have a manual at hand, thanks to a certain someone that's technically the stepfather of the kid in front of him. All Might still didn't figure out what to think about this, really. It's hard to maintain a line of inheritance of information when there is a semi-omnipotent lunatic pursuing you constantly with an intent for murder. Gran Torino is old. He saw the entire history of 2 different one-for-all holders. If someone has a clue on how to deal with it, it's probably him. Then again, considering how wide Inko's contacts in the underworld were, All Might wouldn't be surprised if she could find out more than them both combined. All for One kept his family mostly separated from the business, but Inko was still mischief. She knew a lot of people, a lot of villains, mostly the current old guard, but still. If there was someone who could find All for One's old stash of knowledge about One for All, it was probably her. But knowing All for One, he kept information about One for All in his head. Explaining to Gran Torino that Yagi Tashinori is now a stepfather to All for One's children was going to be an experience. All Might shivers slightly. Inko will save him, right? 1 month should be enough to get some reasonable basics in when it comes to handling your quirk before your exam. All Might continues. He doesn't add that it was probably going to be the BASICS. Less be a mini-me. And more be able to punch a robot in the face so that it breaks more than your arms do. Izuku still sulks a bit. Kid, you do realize that the worst-case scenario of you inheriting the quirk is too early as your limbs coming off. All Might decides to drive the nail home. He doesn't add that what would follow would be All Might's death at the hands of Inko Midoriya and probably a revenge rampage that would go down in history. I know. Izuku looks down. I'm just kinda impatient. I get it, son. He puts his hand on his son's shoulder and gives him a smile. Not one of All Might's, but one of Yagi Tashinori's, the private ones. I felt the same when I was waiting for Nana to give me this quirk. Be patient for a while more, all right. Iri Eiko, Asa, and Inko are there, waiting for them with a picnic on the verge of the beach, to celebrate what Izuku managed to do. So, is he going to make it? Nana asks, because I'm not going to survive seeing Yaga's son exploding into pieces in front of me. We all won't survive this, Nana. Lariat reminds her, we'll explode with him, you know. We won't. Yoichi replies. He is strong enough, though he will have to deal with a high risk of damaging his limbs if he goes all out. He'll have to keep training to suppress the level of power used rather than the other way around. Getting some additional foundational training before inheriting us is a good idea. And since he is young enough and we've finally gathered enough power, N decides to add, we'll finally get to the true form of One for All. We should be able to communicate with him, give him our quirks. Well, not like he has anyone to really use those against. Lariat comments. We kinda geared it all up for an epic final confrontation, only for All Might to just cave All for One's face in and call it a day, without One for All reaching the final form. He sighs. Unless Eiko Midoriya decides to become a villain, because frankly speaking I don't get how she is doing 90% of what she is doing if her quirk is what Inko and Izuku claim it to be. She is seriously freaking me out. Why? Eiko asks from her position right next to Yoichi Shigaraki, staring at Lariat with one of her signature glares. Well, she is kinda. Wait, what the F? Lariat manages to, in the span of a few seconds, go through a sensible reply through the shocked scream to a barely avoided swear word in front of a minor. He still jumps back with enough speed to actually fall over an imaginary couch. Nana realizes 2 seconds later that Yoichi Shigaraki was so freaked out by the sudden appearance of his niece that he actually jumped at her and she somehow grabbed him unconsciously. So she was princess carrying the first holder and she wasn't sure if he noticed that. You are weird. Eiko comments. Funny, but weird. She doesn't specify who she is referring to. I came to check if your music wouldn't hurt Izunishin, but it seems that things will be all right. You could change a few notes to fit him better, though. Are you sure that he needs so much strength? She tilts her head, her eyes drilling through Yoichi, then she vanishes. What in the fuck? Lariat is still half hiding behind the couch, but it doesn't stop him from voicing their thoughts. Eiko is calmly eating the food in the real world, just in front of Yagi Tashinori. It's as if nothing has happened. Eiko Midoriya's unexpected appearance within One for All was the reason for the bustling activity among the dead heroes. It was shocking enough that even some of the heroes who withdrew themselves from the state of consciousness after All for One's death popped back up. There were 27 dead heroes in One for All, but only a few most recent ones, so Nana and Lariat, with even N only popping in and out at random, and the indomitable Yoichi Shigaraki were actively around. The rest weren't there. They were more or less aware of what was happening, but they didn't interact. It was like a dream to them. Well, they weren't there normally. The daughter of All for One just randomly popping up inside of One for All, with nobody knowing how she did it, was a bit of a game changer. Yoichi spent a few days trying to calm everyone down. He was less a human being and more One for All's living control panel at this point. Really, by pointing out that it wasn't an attempt on stealing One for All. When things calmed down, and Nana managed to return to her routine of warming her heart by seeing just how incredibly happy Tashinori was with his new family, they still watched Eiko attentively. Especially Yoichi. And it wasn't just his deep-seated desire to have his own family live in peace and without being tainted with evil, but something else. Asaz's apparent kleptomania was kinda worrying. Then again, he always returned things, and it could be something he inherited from his mother more than his father. But Eiko was. Eiko was Eiko. They were busy commenting on one more family dinner when Yoichi suddenly straightened himself up. Eiko, I'd like to talk with you, he says, taking the Lodge of Mockers' unofficial name, blame Lariat for it, on the couch off guard. I don't think that it works like this. Nana replies, and she is one day going to call him Best Genus Senior and see how he reacts, nods. Lariat still looks slightly traumatized by the stunt she pulled 3 weeks ago. It does, Eiko announces. Lariat squeals. The girl that is probably stalking him in his nightmares is just standing there in front of their couch, doing nothing but intimidatingly. They can still see the other Eiko eating her food with her family, but it's clear that she is suddenly much more absent-minded, probably due to her consciousness being within One for All. What do you want to talk about? Nana is just slightly weirded out, less by Eiko and more by how disgustingly happy the look on Yoichi's face suddenly was. Come on, she might be your niece, but she is also a scary demon child that has already traumatized at least 2 heroes for life, and one of them was technically dead when it happened. Well, I'm your uncle. Yoichi stands from the couch and approaches their collective nightmare made manifest. I thought I'd like to get to know my niece better. He kneels in front of her, leveling himself with Eiko. Oh, okay. She looks surprised by this. Then they both vanish. Yoichi took her to talk in private, using one of his totally not bullshit reality-warping powers that he could use within One for All due to, technically, being their landlord. He also probably sped the time inside wherever they were to make the meeting last for longer. The meal outside ended, and close to 20 minutes passed before Yoichi and Eiko returned. Nana manages to not choke when she sees them. Eiko is nibbling on some candies, the brand probably long extinct and from Yoichi's times, while piggybacking the first holder. Yoichi, the 2 centuries-old half-human, half-quirk, half-myth, is walking towards them with an expression of stupid happiness on his face. And she braided his hair. Oh, and they are wearing matching t-shirts, with an awesome quirk club emblazoned on the front. Nana is worried. N is worried as well. Lariat mumbles something like, "We lost him," which is probably a good summary of what evidently happened. "We had a talk," Yoichi announces while letting Eiko hop off him. "I know what her quirk is, and how she is doing all those things, but I made a pinky promise to not tell anyone. I've also conclusively determined that she isn't a threat to anyone who isn't a meanie to her family. Also, she is the most adorable and precious person I've ever met." She pulls his hand a bit. "Yes, Eiko, I know that Izuku is the most precious person in the world while Iri is the most adorable one. But I didn't get to meet them in person." "Oh, all right," Eiko says with a nod. "That makes sense." She looks at the image seen through Yaga's eyes. "I should go." "Well, come whenever you want to spend some time with your uncle." Yoichi beams at the demon child. Then he runs his fingers through her hair and Nana almost hides behind their couch, like Lariat already did. Eiko seems pleased by it. "All right, Uncle Yoichi, bye-bye," Eiko announces with some actual facial expressions of something resembling happiness, and then she disappears. "Children are adorable," Yoichi announces to the thoroughly shocked audience. "And precious." Nana starts to wonder if you can brainwash a ghost. "All right," Yagi Tashinori announces. "I believe it is time for you to receive one for all." Izuku Midoriya, despite his rather respectful degree of body control and being a gifted gymnast, Inko was teaching him whatever she could if only to make him avoid bullies easier, manages to trip over and lands his face on the pavement. Yagi Tashinori decides that a trip to the grocery store wasn't a good moment to announce such a life-changing revelation. Even if it was just an announcement that they were going to do it soon, he isn't transferring one for all in front of a grocery store. For God's sake, he has some sense of decorum left. Nana Shimura and Inko Midoriya wholeheartedly agree. Gran Torino is tired, his joints and bones hurt should bones hurt. And his teaki is his only relief from the constant existential pain that is getting old. Also, he apparently shrunk by another centimeter last year. Is this going to continue? Is he going to eventually shrink to negative height if he manages to survive for long enough? Is Yagi Tashinori ever going to stop being a source of comic relief for his old mentor? Yes, no, probably. Gran Torino isn't sure of any of those answers, maybe aside from the last one. Gran Torino is about to head to his evening patrol when his phone starts ringing. The old hero sighs and decides to check who it is. Hopefully, someone is trying to sell him something because he loves driving those people nuts. Tashinori. It's Tashinori. For the first time in years, he gets a call from his old student, from the symbol of peace. Normally, he only heard about his antics from their mutual acquaintances, and sometimes saw them on the TV. "What happened?" He picks up, of course. "Yagi, how wonderful to hear from you." Gran Torino says, "So, who died?" No one." He hears Yagi's voice and he just knows that the man is sweating and shaking in his boots. His training wasn't even that hard. Yagi is just a drama queen. "Then you're going to die for not contacting me for so long and now doing so just to talk about some frivolities." Sorahiko Torino shouts into the phone and can hear someone dropping something heavy on the other side. All right, the first hit is in. Gran Torino is looking for more. "And not frivolities, sensei." Yagi quickly corrects himself, thinking that he found a way out of it. "Oh, the foolishness. So you only contact me, your old sensei, about some important things, Torino digs his fangs deeper. "I should have expected. You think that sending me birthday postcards and reminding me of my old age is enough. Who are you even to me now to phone me like this?" "No, sensei, I promise that it's important and sorry for not inviting you earlier." Tashinori is probably standing on attention next to the phone, sweating profusely and shaking so fast that there are probably afterimages of it. Good, Gran Torino is temporarily satisfied. "All right," he says. "What is it about?" "I found myself a successor," All Might says, and Gran Torino is taken aback. Sure, he expected that considering the wounds that All Might suffered, but to hear about him making the decision is, "I already transferred one for all to him, but he is having some small problems with controlling it." Define small problems. Gran Torino replies with a question. Small problems with one for all are an oxymoron, with a quirk that powerful all-control problems are major. He is physically weaker than I was during the transfer. Yagi replies, using 100% broke his arm and both legs. That was odd. Gran expected All Might to find one more muscle brain to transfer the quirk to. Like the kid that was following Sir Knight everywhere. Although he had some brains to back the brawn, then again, so did All Might. Who the hell is the newest holder of the One for All? N wasn't a muscle brain. And while Nana met him only briefly, while he was dying to be exact, before the transfer, Gran Torino investigated that holder to the best of their ability. He found no signs of actual bone shattering, even soon after N got One for All from Daigoro Banjo. It was always instinctive for me, but One for All seems to misbehave ever since I transferred it to him. Yagi continues. His sister has a quirk that lets her know things about other quirks. She claims that One for All changed during that transfer, but it told her that everything is in order and that it just achieved its final form. But it refuses to elaborate on it. Apparently, it doesn't want to spoil the surprise. Gran Torino has a lot of questions right now. But in the meantime, I need someone to teach Izuku how to use the minimal amount of power possible. Yagi continues, and Gran Torino finally learns the name of his new student/torture victim. And And your approach to One for All was always about squeezing out more power rather than less. Gran Torino finishes for Yagi. Yeah, I get it, I'll do it. He can hear the sound of a relieved exhale from the other side of the phone. Time for the interrogation. Who is the next holder? Gran Torino asks. I would have heard about a hero breaking almost all limbs during a battle, so a hero student. There is a strange sound coming over and he immediately detects weakness. Yagi is hiding something and he just stumbled upon it. Not exactly a hero student. Yagi replies, he is going to apply to the UA's heroics course in a month. Gran Torino takes a deep breath. Sure, Yaga's inheritance of the quirk happened at a similar age, but it's still rather odd. There are many experienced and tested heroes out there. Giving such a powerful quirk to a teenager isn't without dangers. In Gran Torino's idea, every teenager is one hormonal swing away from villainy and you can't change his mind. What made you choose him? Sorahiko asks. He is an outsider, not one of the holders. He knows that. He isn't going to try to dictate whom Yagi should choose, but he is still emotionally invested in One for All's long-term well-being. He doesn't want to imagine having to deal with a One for All carrying villain. Thus far, it wasn't a problem due to All for One being after them. No one had the time or possibility to turn villain. But now, who's left to oppose such a person if they went bad? I witnessed a villain attack while already having reached my limit for the day. All Might replies. A sludge villain was suffocating a teenager in the middle of the street, with several heroes, including some of the top 100, trying to pretty much stare him down. Incompatible quirks, my ass. All Might says, and Gran Torino can't help but agree with his student. That kid would have died if a quirkless 14-year-old child didn't rush in, and didn't deal more damage to the villain by throwing his backpack at the weak spot that only he managed to identify, rather than all the heroes present at the scene. Okay, that's certainly a positive review in Gran Torino's books. The kid can think quickly, analyze enemies for weaknesses, in a time frame reasonable enough for it to be usable on the battlefield, and is already ready to risk his life for others. Yaga's choice might not have been as bad as he was afraid of. Only later I learned that the villain's victim was Izuku's chief bully in school. Yagi continues. Although it apparently didn't matter to him, because by the time his brain caught up with what he was doing, he was already rushing in. Now that sounds familiar. Gran Torino replies, that's a bit similar scenario to the one that made him notice Yagi, and then through Sorahiko as an intermediary to Yagi meeting Nana. Are you sure you didn't find your long-lost child? Gran Torino decides to return to teasing his old student. He expects sudden sounds of Yagi being startled. Instead, he gets a few long seconds of silence. It's quite a coincidence, but All Might finally says, he is my long-lost child. Though I found out after offering the quirk to him, when I met and instantly recognized his mother. His taunt misfired. All Might doesn't sound intimidated at all. Is Gran Torino getting old? Misaki. Gran Torino knows All Might enough to know that there was really only a single woman in his life, though Gran Torino knows her only from All Might's description since he was quite secretive about her. And the timetable fits if Yaga's words about the age of his successor are to be trusted. You found her. I was just as surprised as you are, Sensei. All Might says, I almost coughed my lungs out when I entered Izuku's house and saw her. We got married a few months ago, but we kept the list of people aware of it to the absolute minimum due to certain, circumstances. Were the circumstances All Might being too afraid of his teacher? Did Sorahiko's regular Yagi teasing sessions finally backfire? If he teased him less intensively, would he get more opportunities to do that? Well, who would have expected that? Gran Torino chuckles and prepares another teasing session. He isn't giving up. Being a hero is about not giving up after all. Does Misaki know that you were already taken? It was one-sided, yes, but mischief already stole your heart. He doesn't expect another few long seconds of silence, which seems to be Yagi for OMG should I tell him that. I might have discovered that Misaki Kawamura was a false identity. All Might eventually says, of mischief. 20 years, Gran Torino says bitterly. I had fun teasing you about your idol crush on a 10 years younger supervillain jumping through the rooftops in a tight cat-themed bodysuit for 20 years. Now I suddenly discover that you married her and you have a kid. Let the old man have his fun, damn it. Sorry-sensei. All Might quickly replies, and it's completely useless when it comes to helping Gran Torino's mood. Again, for the second time he tries to tease or otherwise taunt Yagi, and somehow it doesn't work. This has never happened during their joint history. So he also has a sister. Gran Torino decides to go for it again. He is going to get it done finally. Also yours, or did someone else catch the elusive cat while you were away? Considering that it took All Might of all people to achieve it, I can't think of many people who could do it. Maybe save for All for One. Was it him? The last thing Gran Torino expected after this was another prolonged silence. One more OMG should I tell him that moment. Sorahiko Torino pinches the bridge of his nose. Yagi, you didn't? He doesn't even sound accusative, he just states it. His brain fails to compute the implications of the silence. She left him over his problems with respecting the no villainy at home rule. Apparently he wanted to make one of their children into his heir. All Might replies, now they all want to become heroes when they grow up, probably due to Izuku's influence on them. Also, neither Asan nor Eiko inherited his quirk. So first All for One was a stepfather to your son, and now you are a stepfather to his son and daughter. Gran Torino sighs 3 times. Yagi resisted his taunts 3 times. He's going to get one in no matter what. Talk about revenge and twists of fate. Also, the family meetings have to be odd. How many supervillains show up to your Sunday dinner, Silence, oh for fuck's sake. Typically either Mr. Compress or Stain or sometimes both. All Might states flatly, something in his voice makes it obvious that he knows. He knows he is winning. For the first time in their long relationship, he is winning their talk. He is still too intimidated to just state this, but he is enjoying it. They aren't that bad once you get to know them. The house and everywhere near it is a neutral zone, officially, so we are yet to start fighting or something. If your kid grew up with All for One and is so good at analyzing weaknesses, how come Nedzu didn't snatch him already, One last attempt. It will work this time. He can tease him from this approach, threatening All Might with the rodent overlord. Just one good hit in and the rest will roll down properly, and... Silence, Gran Torino curses All Might and his entire ancestral line. Nedzu has a soft spot for 14-year-old kids that pen not one but 2 propositions for reforming the UA that get accepted by its rodent overlord. All Might says dryly, but he went hysterical when he mentioned private lessons, and I immediately handed him terms and conditions for those because Izuku expected him to suggest that. Gran Torino lost. It wasn't even a fight. It was a one-sided massacre. Sorahiko Torino begins to consider retiring because if he cannot tease All Might properly, then he is too old for this. One for all in some unspecified final form. Gran Torino says finally, personal contacts with some of the decent supervillains, private lessons with Nedzu. Tashinori, you have created a monster. Yes, and I'm unbelievably proud of him. All Might promptly replies, Gran Torino can practically taste the paternal pride in the air. Also add the fact that Mischief taught him how to keep a low profile when needed and how to evade hits and generally be agile, and the fact that he has 3 younger siblings with Class 6 quirks. Gran Torino groans, all right, send me the address. He adds after a few seconds, I'll teach your little monster some tricks. I'm also looking forward to meeting the thief that stole All Might's heart, and he makes a smile that's just a little sadistic. Please don't tell Atsuhiro I'm coming. Ats, you know him. All Might was finally taken aback just a bit. I was the closest thing his father had to a nemesis. Gran Torino chuckles. I might have caught him a few times, but I always let him go. He was stealing from villains and criminals, even if some of them were also respected citizens. And he was fun to pursue because he was one of the few people up there that I could meaningfully chase. He was a challenge. I'm going to test if his son's as good of a sport as he was. He starts laughing. It's sadistic laughter. All Might ends the call halfway through it. I'm kinda afraid. Izuku says, and Yagi Tashinori is taken aback by that just a bit. Sure, he is used to Izuku showing signs of fear. He is just a normal kid. Sometimes he is afraid of things, just rarely. What he didn't expect was to hear it right after he parked his car in a parking lot close to the UA. On the day of the exam, especially from his son who was enthusiastic the whole ride. Want to talk about it? Yagi asks. They still have 30 minutes before the exam starts. Figuring out how to deal with Izuku getting cold feet sounds like a good usage of that time. Well, it's just... Izuku takes a deep breath. Sure, I got my quirk and I absolutely love it. But I can't exactly use it freely, because it requires a lot of concentration to get the power down to 2%. So, what if I fail the exam? Ah yes, Yagi managed to almost forget how fidgety and anxious Izuku sometimes goes. Not as bad as Asad does, but it's still rather bad. Occasionally. He heard of what happened when Izuku met with Thunderbolt. He knows that his son can be downright scary when he needs to save someone, that his anxiety dies down when that happens because it has to. But for most of the time, Izuku has issues. All right, Yagi, what would Nana do besides smiling? His smile in this form looks a bit creepy. Izuku, Yagi sighs. He can't exactly tell him about rescue points, but he knows his son enough to be pretty much certain that he would get in on those alone. If anything, he is kinda preparing himself for an emergency counseling session after Izuku forgets about the robots and just keeps saving other students for the duration of the exam, and then freaks out that he didn't earn enough points. It's a very clear possibility. Do you trust my instincts and experience as a hero? Yes, Izuku promptly replies. The fact that his long-lost father was his idol certainly helped bridge the gap between them, especially as Yagi and Inko told Izuku that his father simply didn't know about his existence earlier. Izuku quickly realized that if Yagi Tashinori knew that he had a son, he would keep looking for him for all those years. His father loved him strongly enough. Then let me tell you that the only question I have right now is whether you'll get the top score on the exam or not whether you pass or not. Yagi announces and gives his son a thumbs-up gesture. Go get him, Izuku. Yes, but Izuku feels odd trying to argue against his father, and his lifelong idol trying to tell him that he would do okay. I'm still scared, both of not passing and I don't have good experiences with schools and... Izuku being afraid is normal. Yagi replies, you remember my debut video. Do you think that I wasn't constantly afraid back then, of being too slow to save someone, of something exploding in my face? I'd survive that, but being wounded right there. How many people would die then because the only hero on the scene would be incapacitated due to some dumb mistake? But you were smiling, laughing even. Izuku asks back, clearly surprised, if not shocked. Well, his idol just redefined the event that made him become his idol. It was understandable. Not because I was happy or because I wasn't afraid. Yagi replies, it's because I had dozens of terrified people in front of me, and I had to calm them down. And nothing calms people down than seeing the hero that smiles and tells them that everything will be all right. One thing that Endeavor could have finally figured out. Then again, All Might can scarcely even imagine Endeavor smiling. It's probably the type of smile that makes old ladies faint in terror. And about the school. Yagi moves over to another subject. Aldera High School was an exemption to the rule. You are going to go to the school for people who can easily become a downfall or at least a major detriment to society. I assure you that even if they will find something lacking in you, the teachers will not tolerate it. Bullying in a hero school like the UA? No way. Yagi smiles at his son. Besides, you are going to know Japan's most terrifying school principal in person soon. If anything, bullies should be afraid of you, not the other way around. But Aldera, Izuku is, once again, trying to argue against his father. This will not stand. Izuku, Yagi says with as much confidence as he can summon without Inko backing him up. Aldera High School is done for. I had a talk with Principal Nedzu about their methods of grooming heroes, and he was personally displeased with what sort of villain-breeding abomination that school is. He decided to wait until the end of the school year, but I can assure you that this was the last semester in the history of this school. He gathered enough evidence to close the school and send half of the faculty to jail. What? Izuku blinks a few times. Are you serious? Yes, All Might tried his best, but he failed to restrain himself. He runs his hand through the messy hair of his son while giving him one of his best smiles. So now go and prove that they were wrong when they told you that you can't be a hero, just like you proved me. He considers this pep talk to be a success, Maybe even too much. Frankly, considering the look on Izuku's face, he feels kinda bad for the robots. Japan was in an interesting state, Nedzu has to admit. Almost too interesting, and that's a lot considering who is saying it. He is a cunning, scheming, and maybe a bit sadistic rodent. He has a grudge towards a significant part of mankind, but he is smart enough to realize that trying too rashly to change society only brings bad results. And he likes some two legs, and he isn't all so keen on making them a collateral. So when he had an occasion for that, he became a hero. Then he became a teacher, and then a principal. He is really looking forward to becoming a minister of education, which, by his plans, should happen within a decade. Why bother making a revolution when you can take over the educational system of the country without killing anyone? Okay, maybe a few people, but it doesn't count if there is no evidence of Nedzu's involvement, right? His life was going quite nicely, except for the all-for-one issue. It bugged him for quite a while. The boogeyman of Japan and its government, and an unfortunate roadblock to Nedzu's great plans. The rodent, technically a stoat, but that one's a secret to others, let them try to figure it out themselves, knew that All for One was thriving on division and chaos, the two things that Nedzu disliked. Worst of all, he knew that All for One was the power behind the creature rejection clan. That made things personal to Nedzu. He desired to commit an unpleasantness upon All for One. The last time he did such a thing, it was about the head researcher of the project that resulted in his creation and subsequent experimentation. They still didn't find all of the body parts. But then, All for One vanished. He was clearly not doing well in the war against Nedzu ever since All Might returned from America, and then out of nowhere he vanished. With a few square kilometers of cityscape, but that's beside the point. Nobody knew what happened to him, but it was rather clear that he died. All Might was beside himself in anger. All for One's empire mostly collapsed on its own, with several pretenders to the throne battling it out. Things were hardly calm. In fact, if anything, there were somehow more villains than before. They never realized how many powerful villains All for One robbed of their quirks once he deemed them unsuitable for his long-term plans. But without All for One to guide them, the villains spent most of the time battling it out between each other. So Nedzu is free to focus on his teaching career, which totally isn't a part of his long-term plan to take over the society, and on drinking tea. He is doing that in his office, thinking about the All Might's offer to become a teacher. The man has to do something with himself now that his arch-nemesis vanished on him, when the time comes. He has a meeting scheduled with some journalist. It's nothing important, really, but sometimes the rat has to do the things that rat has to do. So he puts down the cup of tea on his desk and waits patiently until his secretary lets Mr. Mikumo inside. "Welcome to my humble office, Mr. Miku," Nedzu says while the door closes behind his guest. That's when the visitor suddenly deactivates some sort of identity-concealing quirk. All for One. It's All for One. In flesh, tall, wearing an exquisite suit, really, where is he getting those? White hair, look of denigration, and slight anger on his face. Just somehow he has managed to fool all the censors, all the security measures that changed UA into a fortress. "Oh," Nedzu comments while picking the cup up. "He can't let the tea get wasted like that now, can he? So this is how I die," he adds after the cup is empty. All for One has remained silent all this time, though he did move over to the seat on the other side of Nedzu's desk. Tempting. All for One replies calmly, "But I have to refuse. I'm here to deliver my demands, and some explanations." Oh dear, Nedzu decides, so he might actually survive the day. He pushes the panic button again, calling the silent alarm off. Eraserhead was his best bet on survival, but perhaps it's best not to aggravate the situation into an all-out brawl. Nedzu really isn't a tough specimen. "I assume that the explanations are about your disappearance." Nedzu replies with a question and pours some tea for his guest. It's naturally poisoned, but All for One uses some sort of anti-poison quirk on it and then calmly sips it. Oh well, there goes another anti-All for One plan. He has a quirk to render poisons inert. Nedzu just lost a bet with Sir Night-Eye. Murai Sasaki thought that he only had a poison resistance quirk. "I have 2 centuries of experience in making people disappear." All for One replies, "I can make myself disappear as well. Also, your taste in tea is significantly better than your taste in coworkers." "I see." Nedzu nods calmly. "Time for Plan C, thank you for your compliment." "I've also deactivated the bomb in my chair with a technopathic quirk." All for One adds, equally calmly, "Plan D it is. I've come to your office at least partially to announce that I retired as a villain. I'm even paying taxes nowadays, can you believe that?" "Hardly," Nedzu replies. "He still has the other bombs left, but that's going to destroy the entire room." Okay building if he detonates all of it at once. Rat enjoys going plus ultra on things from time to time. He had it tied to his heartbeat. It's not like he ever leaves the UA grounds. But what if All for One is here for his quirk? What, hypothetically, changed your mind about your career? My wife didn't like the way I earned my money. All for One replies, and Nedzu finds himself staring at the man in front of him in abject shock. So naturally, I had to change a few things. Fake my own death, retire to a countryside cottage with her, start earning money legally, and so on. He sips the tea a bit before continuing. I am hearing that recon drone making his way here through the vents. Could you please call it off? The buzzing of its engine is irritating. Nedzu pushes one of the many almost invisible buttons around his desk. The power loader is remotely told to stand down. Just in case, Nedzu does the same with Eraserhead's attempt to go after the drone. Good. All for One clearly heard that as well. The point is, it turns out that my eldest son inherited my brother's dumbass gene. Honestly, if Yoichi wasn't dead for more than 2 centuries, I'd make a paternity test. He sighs. I did my best to teach Izuku how to become a perfect heir to my currently leaderless empire, but I failed. I've done all I could to help him, but he still wants to be a hero, like All Might. The laser Nedzu really likes old spy movies, almost slices All for One apart vertically, but some sort of light refraction quirk. He expected this, how peculiar bounces it back through the window. There is now a hole in it. He regrets not adding the shark pool underneath the floor. Not like it would achieve anything, but at least it would be hilarious. Yes, he'll certainly add that. They don't need that one classroom under his office if he survives this meeting. So I did what a responsible father would do. All for One refuses to verbally acknowledge yet another assassination attempt and simply continues on with the talk. I let him interact with his peers, sons and daughters of the best murderers, terrorists, and criminal kingpins in the country, plus a handful of others that I foresaw would rise to the same league. He sighs while pinching the bridge of his nose. Nedzu wonders if this is truly what a responsible father would do. Well, to each their own. Now they all want to be heroes. And I'm really not in a mood to explain to the majority of the supervillains in the country that their children are looking to enroll into a hero school because of my imperfect parenting skills. Nedzu blinks a few times and stops trying to calculate the best way to detonate the explosives surrounding them in a way to maximize the chances of All for One suffering serious wounds while still giving Nedzu a chance to survive. Well, that's unexpected. Nedzu says, he's grossly underselling All for One's words. But I'm not exactly sure why you are telling me this. Well, I need to fix the problem at hand. All for One replies. Plan A, attacking Might Tower and slaughtering every single person inside, especially All Might and Sir Night-Eye, was vetoed by my wife. Apparently this will make my son angry at me instead of making him think that I'm cool, and I don't want to start another interfamily feud. The last one is enough of a problem for me. All for One's wife is now Nedzu's favorite two-leg. So I decided to go for Plan B. All for One continues. UA made All Might. All Might became my son's idol and thus is a source of the problem. So UA is going to fix the problem. It's a bit of an insane troll logic, Nedzu decides. Then again, people are calling his thought process with those words every other day. He got used to it. You are going to create a villain rehabilitation course with a curriculum and the end result of it de facto identical to the hero course. Then you are going to enroll my children and all of their friends in it. And if I refuse? Nedzu replies, the aura of intimidation that he gets in return almost makes him drop his cup. Let me be honest with you, Nedzu. All for One replies with a mocking calmness on his face. He leans forward a bit, and Nedzu feels like the pressure of his presence alone is pushing him deeper into his seat. You, All Might, and the rest of your little menagerie exist because I want it that way. Ruling the world of villainy and breaking the past holders of One for All was an entertainment to me. There is a reason why I never make that line die out. I've been holding myself back this whole time. These 2 centuries, in fact. What you took as waging a war against me was more like a bunch of toddlers trying to wrestle with their father. You do not want me to take my gloves off. Oh, Nedzu might be intimidated, but he is intelligent enough to restrain that. He needs information. You looked pretty hard-pressed during your last bout with All Might. How exactly can you become much stronger than that? Nedzu was certain that it was All for One's full power. My brother's quirk-transferring quirk wasn't the only quirk-altering quirk out there. All for One calmly replies, I've spent 2 centuries gathering quirks allowing me to empower other quirks, change their properties. What do you think will happen if I, purely hypothetically, steal Endeavor's quirk tomorrow and enhance it with 20 quirk-strengthening quirks while doing the same thing with some fire-resistance quirk? I should squeeze a tenfold increase in firepower, I believe, while still being able to put up 13 more quirks at once. Nedzu can feel blood leaving his face. Well, he doesn't. His body is a bit different than the one of humans, but he believes that this is how he would react if he was a human. I'm in the end an avid collector of quirks. All for One continues. I enjoy collecting them, altering them in a way. It feels like desecrating a masterpiece painting by scrabbling over it with crayons. But if you make me unretire myself, I'll make an exception for you, your school, All Might, and probably half of Tokyo. His eyes narrow. Did I make myself clear? Crystal clear. Nedzu nods. This is a completely new threat. He has to bide his time to figure out countermeasures for it, and perhaps find a confirmation of All for One's words. So, how many students are we talking about? 30 in total. All for One replies, and Nedzu almost spits his tea. Some are rather troublesome, so I believe that 3 classes with 10 students each would make sense, especially as I happen to have found 3 perfect homeroom teachers that the UA will greatly benefit from hiring. You want me to hire villains? Nedzu needs to ask because of the sheer audacity. Then again, it's not like he has much of a space to wiggle in, right? Of course. All for One snorts. He is clearly finding the question hilarious. You think that I'll let my children be educated exclusively by heroes? Thankfully for you, I've chosen the villains that should be palatable to you. Villains that, for some reason that's clearly beyond me, hold the heroics in great value. I also ensured that they all have teaching and hero licenses. And so do I. Their eyes meet. The UA's new vice principal. Oh dear, All Might gets a call from Nedzu while he is busy doing the paperwork after his last heroic intervention in the Might Tower. Emergency meeting. On line 1 through the super secure line, which is odd, but Nedzu is often quite odd. The meeting is in an hour, so Yagi Tashinori has the time to prepare. When the time comes, he and Sir Knight are in All Might's office at the top floor of the Might Tower. Gran Torino seems to be participating from his hero agency. There is also Detective Tsukachi, who seems to be at home. This is the first alarm to ring in the hero's head. This is the All for One task force in its almost full ensemble. Oh, great. Daigoro Banjo, the Black Whip hero, currently reduced to being a ghost in One for All comments. He is alive, isn't he? It was a given, really. Yoichi Shigaraki, the first holder, replies, I didn't buy his, oh no, someone attacked me and ended my life ploy for a second. What do you think it is about? Nana replies, most of the past holders weren't that much interested in what was happening and were still in their little unconscious dream state. Yoichi was the only holder before the last few to be active, and considering the fact that Yagi Tashinori was the 27th holder. 2 centuries were a long time. How much Yoichi Shigaraki was a human and how much a quirk was debatable. Nothing good. Yoichi mumbles back, clearly trying not to look at Nana. Daigoro and En roll their eyes as if on cue. What happened, Nedzu? Sir Knight, I asks first. He, like always, prefers to go for the throat, preferably with some side jokes. All for One is alive. Nedzu replies from his office. He is drinking tea and All Might is too afraid of the answer to ask how many cups he drank. It's a good way of gauging just how angry Nedzu is. He sips them slowly to savor the taste when he is calm. Called it. Yoichi sighs. So the war starts again. It was way too quiet either way. Nana comments from her seat. She is looking forward to seeing that monster finally dead and buried, and nothing but seeing his caved-in skull is going to satiate that thirst for revenge. How do you know that? All Might asks. Gran Torino's face is twisted in anger. Detective looks more traumatized than anything. He was truly and honestly hoping that the All for One was gone, because he just left my office. Nedzu replies, right after blackmailing me into making him the vice principal of the UA and enrolling his son into the hero course. The silence after these words lasts for a good 10 seconds, both outside and inside of Yagi Tashinori's quirk. What? Gran Torino is the first to regain rudimentary ability to speak. What? Yoichi has 2 centuries of seeing the most insane things in the world now possible thanks to quirks under his belt. He is the first one to speak within the One for All. The others are still silent, 2 taken aback to form cohesive sentences. He retired from his life of crime after faking his death and got married. Nedzu continued speaking. His son has apparently inherited his brother's dumbass gene, I'm quoting him now, and decided to become a hero. All for One tried to discourage this and made him hang out with children of other supervillains and prospective young villains from other sources, but now they all want to become heroes. He sighs. His father decided to make arrangements. What? This time it was Detective Naomasa. but he did that almost at the same time as Yoichi Shigaraki's another half-conscious. What? If this is a joke, then it's a very good one. Sir Nightai wins the laurels of being the first person to say something even remotely constructive in response to Nedzu's news. I'm afraid that it's not, Nedzu replies, and I'm as shocked about it as you are, I assure you. Wait, I have a nephew. Yoichi is the second one to join the cohesive and constructive sentences team, although admittedly while missing the point entirely. I really don't think that this is an important thing right now. Hikage Shinomori, the eternal loner, comments in a sarcastic tone from his seat. I'm not even sure where to start unpacking this. All Might finally speaks. It's clear that he isn't sure if he isn't falling for some joke. All for One retired. All for One GOT married. All for One has a child. All for One didn't kill said child the second it decided to be a hero. All for One decided to, what, take over the UA instead of, I don't know, doing anything else, really. He is silent for a few seconds. What on earth? For as much as I detest him, he wouldn't kill such a child. Yoichi admits. He would throw it into a bank vault and keep it imprisoned there, caring about all its needs while pretending that it's for their own good rather than for his own control freak tendencies. That's Daigoro blinks a few times, strangely specific. Yoichi shrugs. The history might have gone down differently if Hisashi actually left his superhero comic book collection in the vault, instead of throwing it to trash. What sort of monster is locking an introvert in his room without their main source of entertainment? Really, rebellion was a given. Yes, I'm still rather shocked, Nedzu admits. Despite spending 2 hours discussing the arrangements with him, we'll probably end up having to convert into a board school. He sighs. At least the list of new students sounds interesting. You can't be serious. Gran Torino ends up calling Nedzu out the fastest. You aren't thinking about going along with this idiocy, right? I might not have an alternative to this. Nedzu replies, the blackmail is rather solid. What blackmail? Sir Nai asks. Nedzu narrates the part where All for One clearly stated that he wasn't fighting seriously the whole time, and that he could erase Tokyo from the map if he got the reason to, and that he pretty much didn't interrupt the One for All holder's line because he found its struggles amusing. Wait, is that the truth? Nana is horrified by the words. Yoichi nods solemnly in his seat. Unfortunately, yes, he replies, and the eyes of the active vestiges focus on him. My brother isn't using All for One to its full power. He never did. This is his Achilles heel. He requires conscious thoughts to call up for his quirks, and he has a tendency to gloat over his victims. He sighs. If Yagi was in a similar situation and managed to sneak in a fully powered blow to the head, there is a chance that he would take Hisashi down instantly. Other than that, we're waiting for the One for All to reach the singularity so that we can grant the current holder the stockpiled quirks. Then they can fight like equals. But no one outside of this quirk knows about that. I'm still pissed off that I was beaten up by that asshole. Daigoro replies, now I'm doubly pissed off that he did it while half-assing it. Does that mean that he is actually serious about the whole son wants to go to a hero school bit? En says suddenly, he just betrayed a massive secret to the heroes to achieve that. Yoichi is incredibly confused at this himself. Do you think that's the truth? All Might asks. Nedzu shrugs. I do not know, the rodent replies. While I have a good record of reading people, it's certainly not something that would work against him. Unfortunately, Tsukachi wasn't there to assist me. As of now, I believe that trying to test him would be unwise. He sighs, especially in the light of the student list that I was provided with. Oh, Yoichi comments scarcely. There are 30 candidates for the villain rehabilitation course. Nedzu says, the list includes biological children of Mr. Compress, Dictator, Gigantomachia, Purity, Eclipse, Beast, Mischief, and All for One. That was almost the entire supervillain rooster, save for Gigantomachia, whom they thought to be a myth, Mischief, who was thought to be dead, and All for One, who was too scary to be acknowledged as not a myth. If this is even remotely true, then Japanese supervillains are going to shit square. Gran Torino manages to say, he is visibly torn before abject horror, desire to murder All for One, and something akin to morbid joy. Not only them, Nedzu replies. Because the list also includes biological children of Endeavor and Thunderbolt, both thought to be dead. An adopted child and biological nephew of Midnight that ran away from home, and which is going to be a low blow to at least some members of this group, the biological grandchildren of Nana Shimura. What? Gran Torino, All Might, and Nana shout almost in unison. I'm working on confirming that part as we speak. Nedzu sighs. But thus far it appears to be true. I also asked All for One if he had a hand in that, to which he replied that, however ironic that would be, he didn't, and that if there is anyone to blame, it's probably Nana's son. Nedzu sighs, loudly and painfully. Okay, can we move over for a second from Nana? It's Tsukachi. Yes, I know this is almost a heresy in these circumstances. But are you telling me that children of the heroes number 2 and 3 are alive and, apparently, villains? And that all of those kids are of the same age? Besides, if it's Tauya Todoroki, then he is 24 years old right now. Apparently not anymore. Nedzu replies. All for One has some sort of age alteration quirk. Tauya is the oldest of the candidates. Everyone else was at worst 21 years old. They also apparently consented to the changes, and it's permanent. Every single one of the 30 candidates is biologically and mentally 17 to 18 years old, which is about the standard age for recruitment into the hero schools ever since that governmental reform of those. This is just so wrong. Tsukachi pinches the bridge of his nose and looks like he is in a severe need for coffee. All Might and Gran Torino look borderline horrified that the talk continued while they were still on the Nana part. Nana herself was consoled by other holders, or to be exact, they tried to console her before she glared at them in a way that made them back away. Then she returned to watching the events with the eyes of a hawk going after a prey. Yes, extremely and disturbingly so. Sir Knight admits. This really isn't a joke, right? Yes, this really isn't a joke. Nedzu replies, but it's clear that the rat himself isn't super sure about it. Unless All for One is pulling us into one. He has also provided 3 teachers, who are supposed to be acting as homeroom teachers of 3 10-people large classes. They are all villains, but ones that apparently hold heroics in very high regards. Each of them has, somehow, managed to acquire apparently genuine hero licenses and teaching licenses, so they are technically qualified. Do I even want to ask? Sir Knight, I sighs. All Might is still clearly undisposed. It's up to him to actually ask questions, or so he decides. All right, I'll ask, who is it? Apparently Stain, Mr. Compress, and a warp quirk bearer that claims to be, a resurrected corpse of one of our graduates. Nedzu replies. Sir Nightai develops a sudden desire to jump out of the window of the Might Tower. Stain is a vigilante murderer who has targeted several heroes in the past. Sir Nightai has to admit one thing, each of the heroes he went after was a farce and an insult to the term hero that he held so dear. While it's not something that he will ever admit publicly, the world was better with those people dead. One molested an intern and drove him to suicide. Another was assisting, rather than dismantling, a human trafficking ring. The next one was a pedophile, etc. But the world would be even better with those people exposed and in jail, where they belonged. And that's where his acceptance towards the hero killer ended. At least he dropped out from the network about a year ago when he probably refocused towards earning a hero license under false persona, and a teaching one. How long was it all getting prepared? Mr. Compress, in the meantime, is a double S-villain and a self-proclaimed heir of Ojiharama. Like his ancestor, he seeked to steal from the rich and give to the poor after getting a cut for himself to pay for the bills, but was especially focused on targeting the heroes whom he deemed unworthy of the title. Unlike Stain, he at least had the tendency of avoiding bloodshed as a rule. The last one of the supposed teachers in the meantime. He isn't opening that can of worms. Is the UA going along with this? Sir Nightai asks, it's time to tackle the beast. It's not right. Gran Torino asks, while All Might nods fervently. It's certainly not. Detective Tsukachi chirps in. Why not? Nedzu asks, looking just a tiny bit taken aback by this. All for One is going to spend time right next to us, where we'll be able to monitor his activities. This is a break during which One for All's strength might grow. And the students. The rodent smiles. They are all potentially brilliant heroes, not to mention the amount of screams it would draw from their villainous parents if we'll manage to pull it off. After all, guiding their students into becoming the better versions of themselves is what the schools are about, am I right? I hate this very idea, Sir Nightai says before letting out a loud sigh. But I hate the fact that it's a logical idea even more. Of course, if you know how to deal with all of that and the potential repercussions of the public finding out. I have truly brilliant ideas about that. Nedzu chirps. The only real question is, while I know that All Might is interested in teaching in the UA, would you be so as well, Sir Nightai? Oh no. Yoichi lets out a sigh. This is going to be a monumental pain in the ass, isn't it? Yoraraka Achako's first meeting with Izuku Midoriya was clearly rather underwhelming. and frankly, a bit of a mess-up on her side. She saw a visibly determined boy with green hair walk towards the entrance of the UA, clearly with the intent to join the same exam as she was joining. Then, when being almost next to her, he tripped. She decided in a split second to help him with her quirk. Tripping right before the exam like that is kinda a bad omen, right? But before she managed to touch him, he expertly bent his body and changed the soon-to-happen meeting with the pavement into a forward roll. "Oof, damn it," she heard him say. "Way to start the X." He turned his head back, probably to see what he had tripped over, only to see Uraraka still with her hand extended towards his earlier position. Hi. He was a bit startled by her. It was kinda cute. "Oh, hi." Uraraka straightens her position up. "Sorry I saw you falling, and I thought that it's bad luck to fall like that before the exam, so I tried to catch you with my quirk, but that was an awesome forward roll." She didn't want him to think that she had something to do with him tripping. There were probably some meanies out there trying to sabotage other people to make their chance for passing higher, right? "Oh, thank you," the boy exclaims enthusiastically. "I'm Izuku Midoriya." He extends his hand so she cooperates and shakes it. "Uraraka Achako," she introduces herself. "Good luck with the exam." "You too," he replies, and Uraraka decides that being in one class with him would be pretty nice. He feels friendly, that's for sure. Uraraka is doing quite well, or at least so she thinks. The robots are quite intimidating, but they aren't particularly fast. She sticks to the weaker ones, waits until they are facing someone else, then she taps them with her quirks, sends them flying, and then sees them crash into the ground when the gravity returns. She realizes she is far beneath some of the other examinees. By the time she got her 20th point, she saw the stern kid with engines in his legs shout that he just got his 40th point. She saw the green-haired from before crush two two-pointers in 3 seconds, both with a single punch. He didn't shout his score, but she was certain that he was way higher than she was. She scores 28 points before the ground starts to tremble under her. Then everything shakes and she finds herself on the ground with her body battered and her mind confused. What just happened? Why is everyone fleeing from her? What is that shadow that was just cast over her? She turns her head only to see, oh my God. It's the 0-pointer. She saw their shape on the printout, but there was no scale on them. She thought that they were going to be the same size as the 3-pointers, maybe a bit bigger. But not that big. She can't move. It's both the injuries. She doesn't even know what hit her, but she still feels bad and the dread. "Uraraka!" She hears a shout and sees the green-haired boy run towards her. He is the only one. Everyone else is still fleeing. He won't make it, Uraraka realizes. She can see the 0-pointer raising its hand. It's massive. Why did they make it so massive? Izuku is still far away, and she. Somehow he makes it. It's like a blur of colors with some greenish electric discharges that passes by her in a heartbeat and pulls her away from certain death. It stops 30 meters away with Uraraka still dizzy. "Can you walk?" Izuku asks. His eyes are on the 0-pointed, whose head is turning to face them again. "No, I think my leg is broken." Uraraka knows that Recovery Girl is on standby nearby, but what sort of ridiculous realism level for the entrance exam is this? Is the school principal powerful enough to not be afraid of the lawsuits? All right. Izuku doesn't feel particularly terrified of facing the 0-pointer again. "It's between us and the exit, and I can't fend off the lesser robots while carrying you, so I guess I'm doing this the hard way. Mom's going to kill me." He bends his legs before jumping, with enough strength to crack the concrete beneath him. What? 2 seconds later, she hears the explosion. She looks towards its source to see the 0-pointer's dying moments. Its face is caved in. No, it practically explodes. Did Izuku just? Then she sees him, falling down with his limbs flailing around, clearly broken, with nothing to stop his fall, and if he hits the ground from so high. Uraraka makes herself weightless and grabs some nearby junk. She still has one healthy leg, and she isn't letting him die. She narrowly makes it in time and cushions his fall with her quirk. Then she loses consciousness out of quirk exhaustion, nausea, and her wounds. She finds out a week later that if not for her last-minute save of a fellow examinee and the rescue points it gave her, she would have failed the practical exam. Probably the oddest part of Izuku's attempt to get into the UA was watching the recording of All Might, together with All Might. Or at least, Yagi thinks so. Inko and the rest of their kids are with them on the couch, facing the screen. Izuku doesn't know that Mr. Compress, Ms. Compress, Stain, Gentle Criminal, and La Brava, so a majority of their villainous acquaintances, are in the house. Together with Gran Torino, who at this point has all but vocally acknowledged being a grandfather to Yaga's children. Iri did that. Yagi knows it. Her cuteness and adorableness are nuclear weapons grade. She tamed the old monster in 30 seconds after meeting him. He tried being traditionally overbearing and stern with a scowl on his face, but she just ran towards him and asked if everything was all right because he looked sad, while wearing her favorite All Might onesie because she would have preferably worn it 24/7, especially since she discovered that All Might is her new dad. When he was trying to puzzle up an answer or feint being senile, she gave him one of her lethal smiles, pumped her fist in the air, and exclaimed, "You can smile now." Why? For I am here. Gran Torino was KO at that moment. Ever since then, the biggest problem they had with him was the old hero sneaking in candied apples for Iri during his every visit, despite Inko setting limits for candy consumption in her house. Izuku Midoriya. The Screen Might announces, and All Might decides that he kinda hates the way his voice sounds in a recording. I am here with your test results. I can't believe you are using this catchphrase like that. Inko comments from his side while shaking her head disapprovingly, and Yagi chuckles a bit. She has no idea in how many ways he plans to twist that catchphrase during his teaching career. Izuku doesn't even notice her words. He is staring at the Screen Might as if his life depended on it. That's quite a focus, Yagi decides. Thankfully, the TV doesn't catch fire. First is the written exam. Screen Might in that slightly stupid suit announces. It's my pleasure to announce that you scored 97 points out of 100 on that one. The highest score this year, ex aequo with one more student. Damn it, I knew that I did something wrong. Izuku mumbles to himself. Asa, Yagi, and Inko roll their eyes as if on cue. They know that the written exam for the UA admission is ridiculously hard. The first 50 points are reasonably easy to acquire, and if you score anything beneath that in the exam as a whole, you're automatically out. Then you get 40 points that are really hard to get and differentiate good students from extremely good ones. The last 10 are practically university-level knowledge. If anything, it's a miracle that there were 2 people with 97 points. Yagi remembers that for the past 3 years in a row nobody got beyond 90 points. Then, the practical exam. Screen Might continues. First are the combat points. You have destroyed 17 one-pointers, 13 two-pointers, and 5 three-pointers. This adds up to 58 points. But that's not all. Eyes on the screen, young Midoriya. Suddenly, they all see a girl with brown hair, fidgeting visibly in front of a man they recognize as Present Mike. Excuse me. The girl asks, do you know the boy with curly green hair and freckles? He was the one to destroy the zero-pointer. Yes, I know who you are talking about. Present Mike replies promptly. Of course he does. He regularly visits his parents, although only once Eiko promised to stop messing with him in exchange for him not being so loud, to brainstorm the ideas for his next radio session with Mr. Compress. Those two just absolutely hit it off and enjoyed exchanging new ideas on how to be in the center of the stage known as life. What about him? Would it be possible to share some of my points with him? Uraraka asks, and Yagi can tell that Izuku is shocked by it. I mean, I know that he got more points than me, but he saved my life from the zero-pointer. He even broke his legs and his arm to stop it, and she takes a deep breath. If he ran away like the others, he could probably score some more points along the way, and it just doesn't sit well with me. Sorry, Missy, but you can't share your points, Present Mike says while patting her head. But you won't have to. The recording ends, it's back to the Screen Might. What sort of hero school would only test how destructive their future students can be? Screen Might announces, do you think that we would let you walk away without rewarding your decision to save another participant? Perish the thought. The Screen Might smiles widely. The judge decided to award you 60 rescue points. Screen Might says while giving them all a thumbs-up gesture. That brings us to a total of 118 points. Not only is it enough to pass, but I'm honored to inform you that it's also this year's highest score, young Midoriya. He smiles while extending his hand towards the camera. UA is now your hero academia. Izuku cries. Inko cries too. Their waterworks are, as always, inspirational. Asa hugs his brother, joining in with his happy tears as well. Iri joins the human pile of hugs seconds later, while Eiko just stands on the couch next to them and scarcely pats her brother's head. Yaga's heart is warm and he manages to not cry with them, but he still hugs whoever his arms can reach. Few minutes later, the villains and Gran Torino roll into the room with a large cake. Mr. Compress starts producing the decorations and drinks literally out of his sleeve. Then they all celebrate. Uraraka managed to only just arrive at her new class, and she already knew that her new classmates were going to be tough to deal with. She literally just entered the classroom, and she already ran into trouble. Not her own, but you can't just randomly announce that you dislike someone. The rocket-legged boy from the exam announces, waving his hands in front of him strangely. Don't you think that it is disrespectful to your future classmate? Well, that's just truth. Tall kid with short black hair shouts, or just speaks very loudly, in front of a clearly disinterested kid with two colored hair and a large burn on his face, who is just sitting in his seat like nothing was happening. A hero shouldn't lie, and so neither will I. This doesn't change anything. The rocket kid states back. Besides, you are clearly startling the new arrivals with your shouts and negativeness. The black-haired kid turns his head and sees Uraraka standing in the entrance, clearly taken aback by the volume. I apologize. He shouts again and lowers his head so much that he actually hits the floor with a loud bam. When he raises it up, it's clear that he bumped it enough for some blood to come out. And there is certainly a bruise. I'm simply extremely enthusiastic over MY admission to the UA. MY name is INASAYOAR, say Chai. Oh hi, Uraraka replies, I'm Uraraka Achako and I'm Tenya Iida, the rocket boy announces. I was just trying to explain to Yorashi-san that declaring his antipathy to another student right off the bat isn't a healthy way of starting his history as a UA student. I believe that a hero should be passionate and hot-blooded. Inasa keeps shout-speaking at them all, which is why I have a problem with Todoroki over his behavior during the recommended student's exam. I have already announced what I feel about HIM, something I failed to do back then. That's not, Iida is about to say something when Uraraka hears the door opening behind her again. She recognizes the freckles and the messy green hair immediately, especially as she already saw that clearly startled face after he tripped before the exam. Midoriya, she says loudly, we're in one class. She knew that if she got in, then so did he. It wasn't even something to be happy about, being in one class, however. Uraraka, you got in. He jumps up just a bit. His honest reactions are kinda adorable, Uraraka has to admit. If you're looking for new friends, do it elsewhere. They both hear, and it's at this point that Uraraka notices the human caterpillar lying on the floor behind Izuku, slurping a jelly pouch. Izuku actually jumps forward in surprise, landing gracefully right next to Uraraka. The caterpillar raises up from the floor and enters the room. To your seats, quickly. Izuku whispers before lunging towards his own. Uraraka decides to listen to the boy that saved her life, and thankfully so do Iida and Inasa. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down. The man that emerged from the caterpillar announces. He looks washed up, a bit like a bum, especially the messy beard that looks less like an actual beard and more like him just forgetting to shave it. Life is short and wasting time is illogical. He makes his way towards the teacher's desk. I am Aizawa Shouta, he announces, and I'm going to be your homeroom teacher. Now take your PE suits and follow me. We're going to have a quirk apprehension test. What about the opening ceremony and meeting the guidance counts? Uraraka decides to ask. She kinda looked forward to it and... We don't have time for the frilly niceties. The teacher promptly shuts her down, the clock's ticking. Does she want to know why Izuku reacted to their teacher's arrival by sudden panic and leap towards his desk? Uraraka discovers the reason for that when the pink-skinned girl makes the mistake of calling the quirk apprehension test fun. Zawa-sensei immediately starts looking like a psychopathic killer from some horror movie and announces to them that he is going to expel the one who comes in last. The competition is fierce. Uraraka does her best, but her athletics are so-so, and her quirk is useful only in some competitions. Izuku Midoriya, Inasa Urashi, Iorazu Momo, and Todoroki Shoto appear to be the leading members of the class, with Tenya Iida following them due to his achievements in speed-oriented tests, but he is clearly lacking in the strength tests. Oh yeah, the whole expulsion thing was a lie. It was a logical ruse to bring the best out of you. Aizawa-sensei announces once the last test ends, prompting a class-wide what? Oh, come on, guys, Momo says while rolling her eyes in the background. Of course it was a ruse, don't tell me you fell for it. He wouldn't expel someone on the first day. Izuku decides to speak. Actually, he expelled his entire class on the first day last year. The teacher sighs in the background, probably irritated by the fact that Izuku, if he was saying the truth, just called him out on the logical ruse. Wait, he did. Momo now stares at Izuku, blinking a few times in obvious shock. Izuku nods back. They had no potential for heroics. Aizawa-sensei says dryly. They weren't treating it seriously, even after I threatened them with expulsion. They acted like the heroics were a game instead of a vocation that threatens your life on a daily basis. He sighs loudly. Your curriculum sheets are back in the classroom. Give them a once-over. Then he just leaves them, still shocked. How did you know that, dude? The yellow-haired kid asks towards Izuku. He isn't the only one who is curious, as the entire class is looking at Izuku. I don't even know who he is. He isn't the only person in the crowd who doesn't know that. In fact, everyone but Izuku seems completely lost. Izuku isn't doing his best with being in the center of attention. My dad works for the UA's accounting department. He told me a lot of things about the school, and I met some of the teachers before I got admitted, including Aizawa-sensei. Who is he, actually? Inasash outspeaks. He doesn't look like a hero, more like a terminal insomniac. Uraraka agrees. If she saw Aizawa-sensei in a dark alleyway, she would probably think that he was a villain planning to murder her. That or he was a beggar gathering money for coffee, maybe. He's a racerhead. Izuku beams and Uraraka is 90% certain that she just met a case of a hero fan. The erasure hero. He can deactivate every emitter and transformation quirk within his line of sight. He's one of the most successful underground heroes in the country. Underground heroes. This time it's the small kid with bubbles for hair, the one that's the most relieved of them all because he got the lowest score on the apprehension test. It means heroes that don't get media coverage. Momo decided to clean up her earlier mess-up by proving that she does know things. Either because they like working in private, or because their quirks can be negated easily if someone knows how they work. Sometimes also because their quirks are perceived as villainous by the public. Eraserhead is actually something of a #1 underground hero in the country. Izuku adds, they might be avoiding media coverage, but they are well organized on their own. Not enough to have an official ranking, but Eraserhead is pretty much the closest thing they have to a celebrity, alongside Ms. Joke. Uraraka likes that hero name, and wonders what sort of quirk makes you call yourself like that. I'm still kinda worried about him being our homeroom teacher ribbit. The frog mutant girl says with a rather cute addition at the end. Uraraka does her best to not laugh and somehow wins the fight. Just put in an effort, and it will be all right. Izuku replies quickly. He didn't test our abilities because those can be improved easily. He was testing if we were going to give it our best rather than half-ass it. He is an extremely strict teacher with dozens of expulsions under his belt, but his students that made it to the graduation have the lowest work casualty rate and the highest closed case rates per homeroom teacher in the country. He smiles cheerfully. So he throws out people who aren't passionate about heroism. Inasash outspeaks with a wide smile. I had MY doubts earlier, but I think I like HIM now. And I think that we should proceed to the classroom immediately. Ida adds with a series of hand gestures. What if it's his next test? The field vacates almost immediately. It wasn't another test, but they all realized that it might have been one. The rest of the school day passed relatively normally. They were meeting their teachers for the first time, so most of it was introductions. Uraraka leaves the school together with Izuku, and surprisingly enough, Ida, he is strict and quite passionate, but also rather friendly, once you give him the chance. The school has barely started, but Uraraka Achako is already making friends. The next day they get their first foundational heroics lesson. When All Might of all people steps into the class, there is a riot. Uraraka isn't surprised. It died down almost immediately because Aizawa-sensei stepped in right behind him. All Might announces, with Aizawa just standing there intimidatingly. He is really good at it, that they are going to step right into the thick of it and they are going to have proper battle training. Uraraka would have preferred rescue training since battle sounds kinda confrontational, but, well. They get their gear to a lot of happy squeals, which makes Aizawa-sensei roll his eyes at them, and then they move out. Izuku's costume is kinda cool, Uraraka decides. It's a black jumpsuit with something of a cat ears and a visor. It makes him look a bit like male mischief who isn't hiding who they are, so besides the visors, the rest is visible. Uraraka's is a bit puffy. She doesn't like the small kid's eyes being on her so much. It will be an indoor battle trial. All Might announces. Aizawa-sensei still doesn't say a thing, instead he was just standing there, still intimidatingly. I know that you've mostly seen the larger fights with villains happening outside, but statistically speaking, the majority of this job is done indoors. You'll be separated into villain and hero groups for 2-on-2 team battles. Realize just one thing. Aizawa finally speaks. We have Recovery Girl on standby, but there are damages she can't heal. Anyone who uses clearly lethal force on another will be immediately expelled. Heroes are supposed to arrest villains, and the majority of the villains actually avoid killing heroes, since it brings way too much attention to them. Instead, they prefer to achieve their goals or escape the heroes. All Might is briefly overwhelmed by questions, including Uraraka's inquiry on whether there will be a threat of expulsion to motivate them on this. All Might clearly didn't hear her question, but she swears that she saw Aizawa-sensei snigger just a bit. Creepy. Then All Might tells them that the training will be about defending the fake nuclear bomb for the villains and either trying to secure it by touching it or arresting all villains for heroes. There is also going to be a lottery to pick who is going to fight against who. Iida is surprised by it. Izuku is a bit startled by Iida's reaction and explains from the side that team-ups sometimes force unfamiliar hero agencies to cooperate at a moment's notice, and this training is probably supposed to simulate this. Because if there'd suddenly be a nuclear bomb out there, sending someone to stop villains from having it would be done in a hurry. All Might actually looks faintly surprised by Izuku's explanation, but he clearly jumps on the bandwagon and confirms that answer. Did he actually think about it this way before the training, or did Izuku inspire him to make that answer? 2 minutes later, Uraraka discovers that she is a part of Team A with Izuku Midoriya. Well, this is something she will certainly look forward to. He reacts funny when startled, but is also super powerful. It will be a breeze, right? All Might announces the opposing team. Tenya, Iida, and Inasa Urashi. Uraraka suddenly and painfully remembers that her robot points were low. Tenya had more than twice her combat points, and Inasa is apparently a recommended student, so he is strong. At least they are the heroes, and Izuku is on her team, right? And he had the highest score from the non-recommended students. That means something, yes. They are given 5 minutes to memorize the building plan. Izuku's face of utmost concentration when he is staring at the paper is actually pretty cute. This is going to be tough. She can hear him mumble, and suddenly her enthusiasm and optimism shrink. What do you mean, Midoriya? She should figure out some cute nickname for him. If only to see him startled when she uses it for the first time. Iida witnessed both our quirks in their full force. Izuku replies, "We know his, but we know almost nothing about what Inasa has, other than the fact that it's very powerful and it's about manipulating air. And we can't exactly rely on the map because knowing the school they could as well put in 1 or 2 wrong bits just to teach us about expecting the unexpected." That sounds like a very Aizawa-sensei thing to do, Uraraka decides, and it's one more thing that somehow didn't cross her mind. "I kinda hoped that you would know Urashi's quirk." She replies, "You seem to know a lot of things." Well, he scratches his cheek a bit. "I could have gone for a recommended exam myself, but I really want to earn my hero license. I don't want to use underhanded methods. I have Eraserhead visit my family for dinner like once a week or two, but I didn't know that he was going to be homeroom teacher until I saw him enter our classroom." "That's admirable," she says, and he blushes a little. Still not exactly helpful to us. That's when they hear the announcement that the battle has started. Izuku put forward a simple, if rushed, plan. He suspected that the villain team was probably going to split. Inasa was too hot-blooded to stay in one place, while Tenya was too focused on the objective to not stay to guard the bomb. So the hero team was going to stay together. They would continue looking for the bomb, after all. Inasa might have as well missed them entirely, leaving them to deal with Tenya alone. But if Inasa found them, Izuku would engage him while Uraraka would continue to look for the bomb. She would, preferably, not attack Tenya. Instead, she would wait for the resolution of the fight between Inasa and Izuku. If Izuku would make it clear that he isn't going to make it, she would do her best to win the fight on her own. All Might decides that it's a solid tactic. Fighting Inasa alongside Uraraka is an alternative, but what if they did it? Only for Inasa to stall them long enough that they would fail to find the bomb before running out of time. He and Eraserhead are observing the battle through the monitors, together with the rest of the one. Eraserhead's opinion on the events is unreadable. Some of the kids are clearly looking forward to some action. They get it when Inasa runs into the heroes on the 3rd floor of the building. The gust of wind he generates is strong enough to tear paint off the wall. Izuku notices the attack in time to push Uraraka into the side corridor before he is sent flying by the air current. He manages to stop himself by using One for All to ram his fingers into the floor, but it's clear that he is immobilized. "You know, I'm looking forward to seeing your skills." Inasa speaks while slowly walking down the corridor towards Izuku. Intimidating slow walk is one of the skills he certainly mastered, All Might decides. "You took the 1st place in the normal exam, while I took the 1st one in the recommended student exam. Let us see who is stronger. Wow, that's a strong wind. Denki says, that's a fraction of what Yorashi can do, young Kaminari. All Might comments, if he went full out, he could generate a tornado capable of tearing the building down completely. Some of the kids look at him with surprise and maybe a bit of fear. The hero himself looks forward to seeing how Izuku deals with this obstacle, because Inasa will certainly be one of the highest-ranked heroes in the future unless something tragically unforeseeable happens. Izuku takes a look behind him, as Inasa gets closer and the air current grows in intensity. Yagi Tashinori has maybe a second or two to shout a mental, Izuku before his son lets himself go and is thrown back by the raging tornado of air through the window at the end of the corridor. He trained with Inko how to move around for a few years. He managed to position his body perfectly for the meeting with the window. It's already busted open by the air. Now he flies through what's left, somehow grabbing the window's frame mid-flight and stopping himself. Then he just starts scaling the outside wall. Inasa seems to be actually taken aback by this development, but after a second or two of staring, he uses his winds to propel himself forward. By the time he gets past the window, Izuku has already sneaked into the building through another set of windows. Wow, that was super agile. Ashido Mina comments, did you all see this? Was it his quirk? Had to be right. It's Denki this time. He is clearly taken aback by the mobility as well. No, it wasn't his quirk. All Might decides to clarify. He did use his quirk to anchor himself to the floor, but the rest of it was just physical training. That's awesome. Mina is clearly agitated by it. Do you think he will teach me if I ask? I want to move like that. Midoriya, I found the bomb. It's Uraraka. Ida is there, but he is What is he doing? Izuku promptly replies. He is still running away from Inasa, who is relentlessly pursuing him through the building. Despite that, he doesn't sound fatigued or out of breath, doing a really atrocious but earnest villain monologue. Uraraka replies. All Might is surprised that Ida is still doing it. There is a reason why he silenced Ida's comms. There are limits to cheesiness, and that's Mr. Fear Not, for I am here speaking. But he prepared for me and cleaned the whole room. I have nothing to use my quirk on. Which room? Izuku asks while deftly dodging another powerful gust of wind by propelling himself off the wall and jumping into the side corridor. The middle one of the 5th floor. Ah, damn it, he spotted me. They can see it. Ida isn't attacking her yet, but he is clearly taking tips from Inasa's school of intimidating slow walk. He is also saying something, but his comms are still off. They are recorded by the system to be reviewed later, but too much cheese. Keep him occupied. Izuku says back, I'll try to get there, but I don't think that I can shake Inasa off. I expected him to stutter. Momo comments, but he sounds rather focused. She is observing everything rather closely and attentively. He isn't the only one to notice how much Izuku changes when he is serious, isn't he? He remembers his old dentist back during his UA times. He was normally a very old man with his hands shaking a bit, but when he saw an open mouth in front of him and had to do something with it, his shaking vanished instantly. A bit of an odd comparison, but All Might saw a lot of similarities between his old nemesis and his son. Momo Yaoyorozu might have gotten in through the recommended student exam, but the written exam was shared between that exam and the normal one. She's probably curious about the boy who managed to score an equal number of points in the written exam as she did. Uraraka tries her best to lunge for the bomb, but Ida moves too fast and the bomb slips away from her grasp. Ingenium's brother is clearly trying to buy time, doing his best to not expose the bomb by going after his opponent. Wise. Inasa is slowly shortening the distance between him and Izuku. Izuku doesn't have enough of a grasp on his quirk to try to fight the living whirlwind. If he goes all out, he might actually kill someone. And if not, then his 2 or 3% full cowl isn't enough to even approach Inasa. Just stop running away. Inasa shouts, where is your passion? Come and fight me. He doesn't add coward at the end, but it's clearly implied. Uraraka, plan B, Izuku says through his comms. Finally, he sounds slightly winded, but only slightly. I'm going to blow up the floor of your room. Get ready to use your quirk and go for the bomb. UWH? Uraraka tries to say, but then she figures out what he meant and grabs the nearest support pillar. All Might has only now realized that Izuku is in the room beneath the one with the bomb. Did he purposely get there while avoiding Inasa? Izuku stops. Inasa grins, looking forward to having an actual fight. He doesn't expect Izuku to suddenly yell plus ultra smash and jump up, ramming his fist into the ceiling with enough strength to make it partially explode. Uraraka steals the weight from the pillar and uses it like a baseball bat, propelling the debris towards Ida in an improvised super move. While he is distracted, she bolts towards the bomb and manages to latch onto it, winning the match. Sorry, Yorashi-san. Izuku says they can still hear them through the comms despite the match being called. I really wanted to fight you, but doing it like this gave us the biggest chance of victory. I didn't want Uraraka to lose simply because I wanted a fight. Inasa, to All Might's notable surprise, laughs loudly. You beat US fair and square, he says with an additional laugh. We're having a rematch next time and I'm going to win IT. Also, your super move name's awesome. They actually give each other a fierce handshake and start walking towards the control room, merrily talking about the events of the battle. A room above them, Uraraka does the same with slightly saddened Iida, although it's much less vocal due to Iida moping a bit. This is so manly. Kirishima shouts in the background and All Might agrees. So, whose performance was the best during this exercise? All Might asks loudly. Normally he would just state it and then let the kids figure out the reasons. But this time his son is among the group, and he doesn't want to risk suspicions of favoritism. Eraserhead can help him when it comes to punishments, but he isn't going to say anything positive about a student's performance. Just, no way, young Uraraka. That would be Midoriya. She replies, and All Might wonders if he is looking at his future daughter-in-law. Because frankly, she spends a lot of time with his son, and they seem super friendly with each other. Almost right off the bat. Which is especially shocking because Yagi Tashinori didn't expect Izuku to start gathering friends so fast. He made a plan that worked, and managed to keep Yorashi occupied while moving to the right spot to shatter the floor under the room with the bomb. Izuku is blushing furiously. Someone isn't used to hearing nice things about himself from girls his age. All Might finds this adorable and regrets not having a camera on hand. Inko would love that picture. Young Yorashi. He moves over to the tall whirlwind kid that seems to have taken the page from All Might's school of loud speaking and then took it up to 11. That would be Midoriy. Inasa, despite losing the fight, beams at him with an enthusiastic and slightly maniacal grin. I messed up by not listening to IIDA's plan and going off solo. Izuku exploited this by leading me around until he was in the right position to assist his teammate in capturing the weapon, while all I could do was stare at him. Well, at least losing doesn't make him mope. All Might remembers that one classmate of his who was super enthusiastic, but went all down to being super depressed when something didn't go his way. He ended up dropping the school because of failing a hero provisional license exam, and that was, frankly, rather pathetic. Instead of going that way, Inasa is probably already thinking how to be better next time. This kid is going to be a frightening hero in a few years. I see, young Iida. All Might moves over. Well, I didn't see the fight between Midoriya-san and Yorashi-san, Tenya says. But if it's true that Midoriya-san planned the encounter that way and held Yorashi-san at bay for the whole time, that's certainly enough to consider his performance as the best one. Young Midoriya. His son is, at this point, clearly distraught with praise. All Might's experience with kids is very limited, frankly speaking. He is doing his best, but at least partially relies on what Inko tells him. Only in moments like this, he realizes how correct she was in her assessment that their son has self-esteem issues. He is so unused to praise that he doesn't know how to deal with it. Yagi is doing his best to alleviate this problem, although his best is praising when praise is due and involving hound dog, but they are still far away from getting there. The only question that the #1 hero has in his head is who his son will choose as the best one in that fight, because he certainly isn't going to take the praise and accept it as something he earned. That would be Iida-sensei, as All Might expected, but it still catches the other three, especially Tenya, off guard. Together with most of the people in the room. He created the correct plan for combat that I'd struggled to counter, which didn't work only because Inasa decided to fight on his own. He took correct precautions against Uraraka's quirk and stuck to defending the bomb. He managed to keep Uraraka at bay and was only taken off guard by an attack from a completely unexpected direction, which only occurred because Yorashi failed to keep me pinned down. Sorry for that. Inasa, magnanimous in defeat, gives him a thumbs-up gesture and a bright smile. All Might really likes that kid. He'll be a great and incredibly popular hero if he keeps acting like this. I, in the meantime, failed to shake Yorashi off, and I was forced to use a last-resort tactic. Izuku continues. I had no idea where exactly the bomb was, so there was a risk that I would destroy it. Destroying, a nuclear bomb isn't a good idea, I think. Worst of all, there was a chance that I would wound Uraraka, despite warning her in advance. But I was forced to risk it because Ida kept her pinned down and Yorashi was gaining on me and I couldn't shake him off to join Uraraka. It was a desperate tactic. All Might curses All for One for teaching his son to be so smart. Public self-deprecation sessions shouldn't be so well argumented and hard to dismantle. He ends up looking at Eraserhead for help. Both assessments are correct. Eraserhead decides to save him. Both Ida and Midoriya crafted rational plans for the fight and acted their parts accordingly. The difference between them is, in the end, that Uraraka played her role in Midoriya's plan, while Yorashi ignored Ida's. All Might isn't even surprised when Inasa headbutts the floor while apologizing to his teammate for making them lose. Momo still looks at Izuku strangely. She's either unused to having her intellectual equals around, or Uraraka isn't going to be the only girl pursuing All Might's son in the future. Or both. A few days have passed since the battle trial, and the press found out about All Might picking up a teaching career. It was, frankly, a fairly boring time. Nothing shocking happened, that's for sure. Okay, save for Uraraka discovering that Izuku has some undefined private lessons with Principal Nedzu himself. She heard the tales. They all heard the tales. She actually found out by chance since she ran into him walking towards the principal's office and he kinda blurted it out without thinking. She promised to not tell anyone, but she was still impressed. Then the fateful day came. Today's homeroom lesson will be a bit special. Aizawa-sensei announces. The class in front of him shivers with dread. 2 things on the list. First one is choosing the class president and 2 vice presidents. Someone shouts finally something normal, and Aizawa sighs painfully. Since our time is precious, and I know how things tend to go, you'll be voting for the president, who will then choose whoever he or she wants for the vice presidents. You have 15 minutes. Izuku Midoriya's face goes adorably vacant in shock when he gets 4 votes and gets elected as the class president. If Uraraka's suspicions are correct, he voted for himself, like 2/3 of the class, but also got votes from Uraraka and most likely Ida and Yorashi. Yaemomo, as she wanted to be called, is in second place with 2 votes. The rest, as already stated, voted for themselves. She looks personally saddened by it, though not as much as Tenya, who was absolutely super fierce about getting elected only to G votes. Great, you're done with that. Aizawa-sensei yawns. Choose your vice presidents. Izuku clearly doesn't handle standing in front of the class well, but he does his best and manages to straighten up properly. That would be Yaoyorozu-san and Ida-san. He says just slightly officially and formally, and she finds that cute, and Uraraka nods to herself. She expected as much. Momo and Tenya clearly didn't. Yaoyorozu-san is the only person other than me to receive more than 1 vote, which means that there is someone in the class who believes that she has what it takes. Ida, in the meantime, he glances at Aizawa-sensei, who groans slightly. Well, having someone around who actually remembers the rules and guidelines might be useful, even if we, end up ignoring them. He tries to smile just enough to prove that it was a joke. There are some chuckles throughout the class. Tenya is still too taken aback by being chosen to actually complain about the joke. Great, now back to your seat. Aizawa-sensei says, and Izuku quickly flees. This is going to be a bit of a shock to you, but Principal Nedzu decided to introduce something completely new to the heroics course this year. Uraraka's eyes might have been glued to Izuku just a bit, and because of that she notices him slightly perking up in his seat. It isn't about Nedzu, she figured Izuku out enough to know that. Does he know what it's about? The television tends to offer the public an oversimplified image of villains and vigilantes. Aizawa says, his face is, as almost always, dead. This is something that we tend to introduce our students to at a slightly older age. Many villains are also victims, and it is the opinion of Principal Nedzu that the system doesn't give many of them the second chance that they deserve. Wait, Uraraka thinks to herself. Judging from the stares she is seeing on her classmates' faces, she isn't the only one to start arriving at the same conclusions. She glances at Izuku, and he, as the only one of them all, looks overjoyed. As a result, Principal Nedzu decided to create a special addition to the hero course. Aizawa continues. He has personally chosen 8 villains, vigilantes, or otherwise. Problematic individuals with sufficiently powerful quirks that he decided to be redeemable. They are all of the same age as you. Unlike you, they all live in a separate building on the UA grounds and aren't allowed to leave the school grounds unless attended by one of the teachers. These limitations are going to continue until they are either expelled or successfully graduate from the hero course, thus proving to us all that they were successfully rehabilitated. If they prove to us that this idea has potential, the school will probably officially open an entire, class-sized villain rehabilitation course. Villains, they are going to be attending the hero course with actual villains. Sure, probably small time due to the whole redeemable part and being their age, but the reason why each class will have 2 vice presidents is because you are all supposed to be part of the test drive of the new rehabilitation program. Aizawa-sense continues. The class president will be tasked with making sure that the new additions to the class are neither victims nor perpetrators of bullying or any other type of discrimination, and that they feel genuinely welcomed. He and the vice presidents are also expected to make sure that the new arrivals are more influenced by you than the other way around. Report any suspicious behavior and negative influences they have on you. He sighs. Any questions? Yaemomo is the first one to raise her hand. Most of the class is still stunned by the announcement and clearly can't form cohesive sentences. What sort of villains are these new students going to be? She asks formally. I mostly refer to the crimes they committed. All that you need to know is that Principal Nedzu and the UA's legal department are in agreement that there are major attenuating circumstances that justify their admission. Aizawa replies calmly. The crimes themselves range from bullying, illegal quirk usage, and suicide baiting to first-degree murders. There is an audible gulp throughout the class. However, to avoid stigmas, we have opted to keep their crimes hidden. If the students decide to reveal them, it's fine. In the meantime, only the faculty and the class presidents will be made aware. The class presidents are, however, forbidden from sharing this knowledge without the rehab students' agreement. As a result, if any of the other students notices something odd in the behavior of our new problem children, report it to either the faculty or talk it over with your new class president. Izuku clearly knew about it already. This makes no sense. He was just voted in, right? Yet he clearly was aware of what was going to happen. Uraraka is going to get to the bottom of this, no doubt about it. Well, no other questions, at least for now. Aizawa-sensei yawns. If you have any, take them to your class president. Just wait until tomorrow so he gets the answers to them. And now let me introduce to you the 4 rehab course students assigned to your class. He doesn't even make any louder sound, but whoever was in the corridor next to the class heard him well enough. The door opens and 4 kids in UA uniforms walk in. First is a really gaunt boy with messy, light blue hair. The skin on his face looks really dry, odd thing to notice at first, and he is wearing an expression of complete indifference. After him is a petite girl with pale skin, ashen blonde hair styled into 2 really messy buns, and a face that looks quite enthusiastic. Then another boy with messy hair, but this time indigo in color. He also looks like he missed a nap or 2 from his schedule, who seems to fight the first boy for the position of the most outwardly disinterested boy in the room. And then, finally, another boy with spiky ash blonde hair and an expression of barely restrained rage. It grows slightly more when he and Izuku lock eyes for a few seconds. It's odd, do they know each other? Going in the order of entering, Aizawa announces. Tenko Shimura, Himiko Toga, Hitoshi Shinsu, and Bakugo Katsuki. Their teacher sighs painfully. Have fun. I think that Izuku knew what was going to happen beforehand. Uraraka announces during the lunch break. She is at one table with Tenya Ida, Inasa Yurashi, and Tsuyu Asui, whom she recently began to befriend, which is nice because she certainly needs some female friends. Really, Tenya appears to be intrigued by the idea. How exactly? I am aware of his connections with the school staff, but it's still a notable lapse in security if a student knows something like this. Especially as I came to believe that the UA did its best to hide the rehab program from the world. He goes silent for a second. I checked the internet on the way here, and absolutely no media reported something like that being prepared. Is it that surprising, Ribbit? Tsuyu asks. I believe that the media won't take it face down. The principle of the UA letting hero course students intermingling with teenage villains and so on. The press will be out for blood. The press is stupid. Inasa says, and immediately heads are turning towards them. There is a reason why Inasa tends to not say a lot during lunch. He acknowledges the need of others to eat in peace, but his voice is always over the top. So instead of making his voice less loud, he simply says as little as he can. Odd. Then again, which one of their classmates isn't odd? Can't fight you there, Kira. Tsuyu says with a nod. The press is the worst. Then again, it's the UA, and it will most likely be presented as a test of the program with an option to roll the changes back if it fails. But I'm slightly worried about being associated with villains, though. Oh yeah, complex mutant quirk stigma. Uraraka can understand that much. It's now 2 stigmas for the price of 1 to her. Can they even do that legally? Uraraka is mostly confused about this. Shouldn't that be run through a court or something? Can you keep something like it hidden? They do, yes, Tenya says while fixing his glasses. This is relatively easy to achieve, although it requires some time and effort. People do not realize that hero agencies can theoretically take in vigilantes and small-time villains for rehabilitation purposes. My brother's agency has a few former vigilantes as sidekicks, actually. This doesn't happen very often, but there are a few agencies that specialize in this. They can transfer such wards to other agencies if they decide them to be better suited to their needs. If my suspicions are correct, Principal Nedzu ran the candidates through such agencies, before having them immediately transfer their wards to his agency. The rest, namely connecting their rehabilitation program with the hero course, is theoretically in his right as the principal. Your brother's agency, Uraraka asks, and Tenya immediately beams. Yes. I don't exactly like it when it's brought to attention, but my brother is a pro-hero. He says, for the first time in like ever, Uraraka sees a genuine smile on his face. His hero name is Ingenium. You don't like it, Kiro? Suyu's head tilts a bit, but you look happy to be able to mention it. That's true. Tenya nods. I'm extremely proud of my brother, and I'm looking forward to working alongside him. However, I wish to earn my position with my own merit. Abusing my connections would give me an unfair advantage over students who didn't get born in a family like my own. This is the reason why I refused my brother's offer to receive his recommendation and attend the recommendation exam. Inasa pauses, stuffing himself with food, and gives Tenya a thumbs-up gesture before returning to the feast. Uraraka kinda expected him to react like that. Competing fair and square and having a goal to strive for sounds like a very Inasa thing to do. Midoriya told me the same thing before our fight. Uraraka adds that he doesn't want to use his connections and instead wants to earn everything fair and square. Tenya beams just a bit. Inasa does the thumbs-up gesture again. I'm still going to dig into it, though. Uraraka decides to return to the initial subject. I was observing Midoriya when Aizawa-sensei announced the rehab program. Everyone was shocked, but he looked like Christmas came early. And I'm something like 99% sure that he, and at the very least Bakugo, know each other. So while everyone was watching Aizawa-sensei, you were focused on studying a boy's face ribbit. Tsuyu asks, her finger on her lips, how bold. Uraraka starts stuttering because it's certainly not what Tsuyu implies. She is just concerned about it as his friend. But that's when they both see Izuku approaching and he has company. 2 rehab students, actually.